Chapter 936. Staring at Hyojin, who had entered the Tenseigan chakra mode, Ninetails' pupils suddenly shrank, and his face showed an uncontrollable shock. "You are the Yama of Amatsukami?" Because he could release chakra through the seal, Ninetails could receive external information with the help of Naruto's senses. Because of this, he was no stranger to mysterious organizations such as Akatsuki and Amatsukami in the ninja world. Comparing it with the rumors he had heard, he recognized Hyojin's identity through the Tenseigan chakra and the truth-seeking ball. After all, it could disguise other things, but not the truth-seeking balls. After all, only the Sage of the Six Paths and the Otsutsuki Azura, who had inherited the ninja sect, could condense the truth-seeking balls. Playing with a truth-seeking ball in his hand, Hyojin said, "Now we can talk." Ninetails looked vigilant. "Who are you?" Hyojin said lightly. "Don't you already know? I am the 5th generation of my Naruto, the leader of Amatsukami, Yama, and also Naruto's teacher." Ninetails still couldn't believe it. How is this possible? You are just a Hyuga. How can you have such strong power? In its long life of nearly 1,000 years, Ninetails had fought with many powerful ninjas, but only the descendants of the Sage of Six Paths could really pose a threat to it. That is, the Uchiha clan, the Senju clan, and the Uzumaki clan. As for the other ninja clans, even the Hyuga clan, which was the descendant of Otsutsuki Himura, it didn't put them in its eyes. After all, the ninja world was a world where strength was respected. The Hyuga clan, which was proficient in taijutsu but not good at dealing with large monsters, naturally couldn't get the respect of Ninetails. The only exception might be the 4 generations Naruto who had separated and sealed the Ninetails. However, even the technique used by Yondaime Hokage to seal the Kyuubi was developed by the Uzumaki clan, the descendants of the Sage of the Six Paths, the Uzumaki clan. At this time, Hyojin's eyes turned cold, and his tone became much more sinister. "Do I need to explain to you?" The nine-tailed beast put away its arrogance and bowed its head. Without the truth-seeking ball, Hashirama and Madara Uchiha could already play with it like a toy, not to mention facing a strong person like the Sage of the Six Paths. Of course, it didn't know that Hyojin hadn't reached the Six Paths level yet, and he didn't have the Sharingan and would release that could easily subdue it. Seeing that Ninetails put away their resistance, Hyojin began to talk about cooperation. From a moment Naruto became a Jinchuriki, your fate and Naruto's fate have been tied together. So helping Naruto is helping yourself. Ninetails was a little confused. "You want me to recognize that kid?" Hyojin nodded and said, "Yes, I need you to work together. This is good for both of you." Ninetails muttered, "What good can it do for me?" Hyojin asked coldly, "Isn't the benefit of being alive enough? Do you want your chakra to be extracted, your soul destroyed, and you will become the 10 Tails who only knows how to destroy before you are satisfied?" Ninetails fell into silence when he heard this. Hyojin then said, "As long as you cooperate with me, I can lift this seal for you in the future and even find a way to help you find the other half that was sealed by 4 generations." Ninetails' eyes lit up and asked, "Really?" If someone else were to make such an admission to him, he would definitely scoff at it, because he knows very well that the other half of his yin-yang chakra, along with the soul of Yondaime Hokage, was sealed in the stomach of the Shinigami. But for a strong person who can condense the truth-seeking ball like the Sage of Six Paths, nothing is absolutely impossible. As long as you are willing to let go of the knot in your heart and live in peace with Naruto, I will do all of this for you. After a pause, Hyojin emphasized the Ninetails, who didn't believe in ninjas. Hyojin will do what I say." Ninetails didn't hesitate for long and nodded. In fact, he also knows that on the night of Naruto's birth, 4 generations and Ninetails of Jinchuriki were plotted against, and he was also controlled by the other party's Manjikyu Sharingan. He caused a lot of trouble in Mai, so 4 generations had no choice but to seal him. Therefore, he hates and respects 4 generations who divided and sealed him. Seeing Ninetails nodding, Hyojin secretly breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Clap your hands to make an oath." In fact, he didn't have a good way to deal with the Ninetails in Naruto's body, so he directly entered the Tenseigan chakra mode and used the truth-seeking ball and the prestige of Amatsukumi's Yama to deter the unruly Nine Tails. Otherwise, if he only used words, even if he talked until his mouth broke, he was afraid that it would be difficult to persuade Nine Tails. Walking to the iron fence where Nine Tails was sealed, Hyojin stretched out his palm. Nine Tails and the iron fence hesitated for a moment, and then immediately stretched out his huge front paw. Separated by the towering iron fence. The palm and the claw, the disparity in proportion touched each other, which was considered to be the finalization of this cooperation. After negotiating with Nine Tails, Hyojin glanced around and found that there was still no abnormal chakra around. It seems that he is not going to come out to see me. Hyojin knew very well that there were not only Nine Tails in Naruto's spiritual world. Before Minato and Uzumaki Jushina died, they had both left a trace of chakra in Naruto's body. However, the chakra left behind before they died was very weak, only enough for them to appear once. Therefore, they did not choose to appear for Hyojin, an uninvited guest. Instead, they wanted to leave the last chance to meet to their son, Naruto. It was also because of this that Hyojin did not hesitate to reveal the identity of Yama. Because whether it was Nine Tails or the trace of chakra left here by Minato and Uzumaki Jushina, there was basically no possibility of Hyojin's secret being leaked. Nine Tails and Naruto had long been in the same boat, so it was impossible for them to fall to the Akatsuki organization. As for Minato and Uzumaki Jushina, they could at most tell this secret to Naruto, but they could not pass it on at all. Moreover, they could use Naruto's senses to sense the outside world, so they should be very clear that Hyojin had no ill intentions towards Naruto and had been thinking of ways to improve Naruto's strength. Therefore, there was even less reason for them to leak Hyojin's secret. Watching his son spend his entire childhood being ostracized and alienated in a tragic environment, I wonder how the fourth generation would feel. Would he regret his decision to die in the line of duty? For some reason, when Hyojin left Naruto's spiritual world, such a thought flashed through his mind. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who tipped yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 9:37. After exiting Naruto's spiritual world, Hyojin shook his head. Using the pupil power to invade his spiritual world, this is not the first time that Hyojin has done it, but entering the Tenseigan chakra mode in the spiritual world and condensing the truth-seeking ball with pure spiritual power is still a bit difficult for him at present. Naruto froze and asked, "Sensei? Sensei?" After gradually adapting to the fatigue of the spiritual body, Hyojin smiled. "I'm fine." He didn't tell Naruto about his cooperation with Nine Tails because it is not necessary. Naruto originally has a pure heart and has the strongest diatribe among the previous Asura reincarnations. As long as Nine Tails takes the initiative to let go of the knot in their hearts, it won't take long for the arrogant fox to be easily taken down by Naruto. And if he tells Naruto about his cooperation with Nine Tails, it will be counterproductive. After sending away Naruto, Hyojin thought in the study room. This time he forcibly intervened between Naruto and Nine Tails. In fact, it is difficult to say whether it is good or bad. After all, mutual understanding is not something that can be obtained by trading and coercion. It's just that Hyojin doesn't have time to wait for Naruto to slowly melt the ice in Nine Tails' heart. This time, the Chunin exam jointly organized by the 5 great ninja villages is likely to be the last experience and stage for Naruto before the Akatsuki organization invades. And at the moment when Naruto has mastered multiple doppelganger and Rasengan, if he wants to improve Naruto's strength, he can only start from the tailed beast transformation. Even if he loses control, Naruto's speed, strength, resilience, and even chakra's amount will increase exponentially. But this kind of strength is irrational and doesn't distinguish between friend and foe. In the original story, Jiraiya, one of the Sannin, almost died in the hands of Naruto in the state of berserk. It can be seen how dangerous this kind of pure, out-of-control berserk is. Therefore, Hyojin took the risk to intervene and reached a cooperation with Nine Tails. As long as Nine Tails deliberately controls their resentment and anger and doesn't use chakra to infect Naruto's consciousness, then Naruto can avoid berserk and enter the tailed beast transformation while retaining his own will, reaching a state close to the perfect Jinchuriki. Once this step is achieved, then he can look forward to the Nine Tails Chakra Mode. Nine Tails Chakra Mode is an advance of the tailed beast transformation. In terms of combat power increase, it far exceeds the ordinary tailed beast transformation. Naruto, who has entered the Nine Tails Chakra Mode, has speed and strength not inferior to the 4 generations Lei Ying's Thunder Release Chakra Mode. And in terms of chakra usage, hostile perception, and self-resilience, Nine Tails Chakra Mode completely crushes Thunder Release Chakra Mode, only inferior to Hyojin's Tenseigan Chakra Mode. It is a very high-end and very comprehensive chakra mode. Among all tailed beasts, only the Nine Tails' human Jinchuriki can do this. As for other people's Jinchuriki, even if it is Chalabi who can completely understand the 8 tails and almost merge into one, they can't enter a state similar to the Nine Tails Chakra Mode, because the Nine Tails is the most special of the Nine Tails. The Nine Tails in its peak state can almost rival the other 8-tailed beasts at the same time. Even the Nine Tails in Naruto's body with less than half of the chakra amount left has the strength to surpass all tailed beasts. In the underground palace of the Sound Village, looking at the clones floating in the large nutrition tanks in front of him, Orochimaru stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. A strange light flashed in his sly eyes. Since his body was destroyed by Danzo, and he lived in the body of Medicine Bag in the form of chakra, Orochimaru began to devote his energy to the research of clones. Because he gradually discovered that instead of snatching other people's bodies all over the shinobi world, it is better to use cloning technology to customize a body according to his own requirements. As for cloning technology, this is not a problem for Orochimaru. In fact, Hyojin's cloning technology was learned from Orochimaru. The reason why Hyojin was able to surpass his predecessor is not because Hyojin's research and development ability is stronger than Orochimaru's, but because he only focuses on the field of cloning. Comparatively speaking, Orochimaru's field of study is much more extensive than the others. Whether it is the Lord of Reincarnation that can theoretically grant eternal life, the Lord of Impure Tensei that can distort life and death, the Lord of Impure Tensei that can summon the dead, or the Yamada no technique that can transform into an 8-headed snake, without exception, all of these projects require the research and development of a large team. And Orochimaru has almost single-handedly researched or improved these projects. It is precisely because he dabbled too much that he was distracted, which led to him being surpassed by his disciple Hyojin in the field of cloning technology. However, after losing his body and suffering a major setback, Orochimaru reflected on himself. No matter how strong forbidden jutsu is, in the end, it is only a jutsu. If one's body is too weak, then even if one mastered many forbidden jutsu, they will still be easily defeated by the enemy, just like the previous battle with Danzo. As a result, Orochimaru began to tailor the perfect body for himself. Because Medicine Master Kudo has mastered Sage Jutsu, Orochimaru, who can freely use Medicine Master Kudo's body, also personally experienced the unparalleled power of Sage Jutsu. Following his habit of innovation and madness, he also injected the powerful Sage Jutsu chakra into the experimental clones. The row of clones in the large nutrition tank in front of him has survived countless experiments. There are a total of 6 clones, and each of them has a very strong chakra. At this time, Yamato came to the laboratory and handed a scroll to Orochimaru. "Sama, this is the communication scroll that Mai just sent over." Taking the scroll and unfolding it, Orochimaru smiled disdainfully. "Chunin exam? Ha! This old man always likes these flashy things." Yamato asked respectfully, "Sama, how should we respond to Mai?" As if he had thought of something, Orochimaru grinned and said, go and arrange for Kimimaro to lead the team to my... Yes. After nodding, Yamato left quietly. After Yamato left the laboratory, Orochimaru smiled and said, Chunin exam. Might be interesting. Suddenly, the expression on Orochimaru's face changed, and a different voice came out his mouth. Orochimaru-sama, are you thinking about the Manjikyu Sharingan again? His expression changed again, and Orochimaru smiled leisurely and said, I just want to confirm whether the kid named Sasuke has the talent or not. It just so happens that I'm lacking Sharingan test subjects. I heard that the kid has awakened the 3 Magatama Sharingan, so he might be a good test subject. Here's the first update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. It's the end of the month. Students with monthly votes, please support me. Chapter 9:38. As Mai's communication eagle passed the news to the various villages, the news that the 5 great ninja villages were going to jointly hold the Chunin exam quickly spread throughout the world of ninja. In addition to the 5 great ninja villages, the Grass Ninja Village, Sound Ninja Village, and Taki Village, which received the invitation, also expressed that they would send their outstanding genin to participate in the Chunin exam. As a result, Mai once again became the center of everyone's attention. Naruto's office. Tenseigan. Looking at the information in his hand, Hyojin curled his lips slightly. The information in his hand was the list of people participating in the Chunin exam sent by the Rock Village, and he saw a familiar name in this list. 3 generations Tsuchikage Inoki's granddaughter, Hei-2, the Tsuchikage of 4 generations in the original space-time. Although Hei-2 was not much older than Naruto and Sasuke at this time, at most 12 or 13 years old, Hyojin really didn't believe that Hei-2, as Inoki's granddaughter, was still a genin. Turning to the second page of the information, Hyojin suddenly froze and immediately looked at the several consulting elders in front of him. Is this really the list of people sent by the Rock Village? Could it be someone's prank? 3 generations, Tsuchikage shook his head with a depressed expression, confirming the authenticity of the list. On the side, Tsunade gritted her teeth and said, I really didn't expect Inoki to be despicable to this extent. Kuroto turned his gaze back to the list of people in his hand. He looked at Dedale's picture on the list and said, Can't you afford to play? Zhuan Xiaochun's face was black. I have confirmed it through the intelligence team. Because Dedale escaped when he was 9 years old, he missed several Chunin exams of the Rock Village. His current identity is indeed a genin, or not even a genin. Hyojin was speechless. He's just a disciple of the Tsuchikage. Isn't it just a matter of a word from the Tsuchikage to promote him? Zhuan Xiaochun sighed. It is precisely because he is Tsuchikage's disciple that his promotion has no effect on his identity. Moreover, Rock Village has encountered a series of troubles recently, so his promotion has been delayed. Dedale became famous very early. He defected at the age of 9 and made a name for himself in the shinobi world at the age of 10. In the original space-time, when Itachi invited Dedale to join the Akatsuki, Dedale was only 12 or 13 years old, almost the same age as my students who had just graduated from the ninja school. Even now, he was only a little more than 14 years old. He was only 1 year older than Ningxi and about the same age as Kimimaro. He was a true genius. Hyojin was too lazy to look at the other people on the list, and directly threw the list in his hand on the desk and said, No wonder Rock Village proposed to jointly hold the Chunin exam. It turned out to be waiting for us here. The several consulting elders also looked at each other speechlessly. Originally, after looking at the previous graduation exam of the ninja school, everyone thought that the Chunin exam jointly held by the 5 great shinobi villages would be certain. They didn't think that Rock Village's bottom line would be so low. It seems that in order to restore the prestige of Rock Village, Inoki really went all out. What's even more speechless is that Dedale couldn't be found in any aspect. Because he defected at the age of 9, so he didn't get promoted to Chunin, and because he is currently only 14 years old, almost the same age as the majority of genin, so there is no problem in his age. Just because someone is famous, they can't stop him from participating in the Chunin exam. Knock, knock. At this time, there was a knock on the door outside the office. Hyojin said, "Come in." An Umbu member walked into the office with a few scrolls, and, after saluting everyone in the room, he said to Hyojin, "Naruto-sama, these are the scrolls that the communication team just received from the various villages. These are the names of the people who participated in the Chunin exam." Kuroto and the other elders took the scroll one after another and opened it to look at it. The scroll that Hyojin got was the name list of the people who participated in the Chunin exam from Cloud Village, and as soon as it was unfolded, the name Druid came into view. Well, 5th generation Liang is also here. After cursing in his heart, Suijin continued to look down, and as expected, he saw the name Shi and Semui. Hyojin handed the scroll in his hand to 3 generations and said, "This druid is at least 18 years old, and he is still a genin? Who are you kidding?" 3 generations took the scroll. Mist release ninja druid? With that said, 3 generations looked at Zhuan Xiaochun, who is currently in charge of the village's intelligence. Zhuan Xiaochun shook his head and said, "Because of Hiriko and Danzo's hunting of Kekkei Jinkai ninjas and carrying out the Kekkei Jinkai ceremony, Cloud Village has classified all the information about Kekkei Jinkai as top secret. Therefore, whether this druid is a genin or not, we can't verify it." Hyojin sneered and immediately took the scrolls handed by the others and looked at them one by one. The Sandcrypsis' list of people is Temari, Kankuro, and a guy named which seems to be quite normal. On the Takunin side, in addition to the 7-tailed Jinchuriki Lifu who is already in Mai, the other 2 are named Toki and Kun. Both of them are adult ninjas in their 20s, whether they are genin or not is questionable. On the sound side, there are 2 groups of people participating in the Chunin exam. One group is Kimimaro, Haku, and Yugo, and the other group is Onikamu, Takuya, and Zoku. Orochimaru really sent someone here. Is he still thinking about the Manjikyu Sharingan? At present, due to the lack of information, Kuroto can't guess the purpose of Orochimaru sending people to participate in the Chunin exam. At this time, Jiraiya was puzzled. "Hey, why hasn't the list of people from a mist village been sent?" Ahem. Hyojin coughed twice and said, "With the Mizuki's current situation, it is normal for the mist village to be slow to respond." Jiraiya thought for a moment and nodded. Because 4 generations Mizuki Yagura himself is a Jinchuriki and one of the Akatsuki organization's targets. So after the Mist Village's 6-tailed Jinchuriki Yagura's whereabouts became a complete mystery. Only a few high-level members of the Mist Village and Hyojin have a way to contact Yagura. The reason why the list of people from the Mist Village hasn't been sent to Mai yet is because Hyojin slightly changed it halfway. When everyone checked the list of people sent by each village, the atmosphere in Naruto's office suddenly became a lot more depressed. After a moment, 3 generations asked, "That Kimimaro from the Sound Village, is he the white-haired boy who defeated Sasuke at the alliance ceremony?" Zhuan Xiaochun nodded. "Yes, that's him." 3 generations pondered for a moment and said, "I remember that at that time, he almost had the strength of a Jonin, right?" Chapter 9:39. Tokubetsu Jonin? Hyojin gently shook his head. In the original story, Kimimaro, who was already terminally ill and could only rely on medicine to barely maintain his life, almost killed Gaara, who was about to take over the position of the 5th Kazekage. Even if his combat power wasn't at the level of Kage, he was at least at the level of an elite Jonin. Looking at the time, Kimimaro, who was still more than a year away from dying, should be at the peak of his power. With the Curse of the Earth activated, he should be able to reach the Kage rank if he didn't care about his life and death. Jiraiya frowned. This Chunin exam doesn't seem to be very optimistic. Tsunade also nodded. She was very confident in the genin of the village, but the other villages obviously broke the bottom line and sent people who had obviously reached the level of a Jonin or even a Kage to participate in the exam. Compared with these monsters, the genin of the village obviously couldn't compete. 3 generations took a puff from his pipe and said, "It seems that we have to reformulate our strategy." Zhuan Xiaochun immediately understood. Well, there's also a competitive relationship between the other villages. A character like Rock Village Deadale should be the focus of attention of the other villages, so we can draw the contestants from the other villages to deal with the Rock Village team first. Jiraiya hesitated for a moment and said, "But is this useful? Deadale has even grasped Dust Escape. He might be able to sweep the entire battlefield by himself." Behind Naruto's desk, Hyojin said he can't sweep. Sound Village. While my clan was urgently discussing the Chunin exam, Orochimaru also summoned Kimimaro, who was ready to lead the team. Kimimaro bowed to Orochimaru and said respectfully, "Orochimaru, Sama, do you have any other orders?" Kimimaro was taller than before, but his face was pale and he coughed from time to time. After looking at Kimimaro, Orochimaru asked, "Do you know why I want you to participate in the Chunin exam?" Kimimaro shook his head. Orochimaru said, "Do you remember the Uchiha named Sasuke?" Kimimaro thought about it and nodded. Orochimaru's eyes narrowed, and with a slight murderous aura, he ordered, "This time when you go to Mai, you only have one task. That is to kill him in the Chunin exam." Kimimaro was a little surprised, but he nodded without hesitation and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely kill him." Cough. As soon as he said that, Kimimaro coughed. Seeing that Kimimaro was coughing painfully, Orochimaru frowned and asked, "The new painkiller didn't work again?" Kimimaro, who had finally calmed down, gasped and said, Yes. After a moment of silence, Orochimaru said lightly, "I will try to develop a stronger painkiller as soon as possible." Kimimaro's expression was a little gloomy. "Sorry for troubling you." Orochimaru waved his hand and said, "You can leave now." "Yes." Kimimaro immediately bowed and left. After Kimimaro left, Orochimaru was deep in thought. Unlike Orochimaru, who was busy with the development of various forbidden techniques in the original world, and later had his hands sealed by the zombie demon seal, Orochimaru has now shifted the direction of scientific research to human cloning and cell research. Because of this, Orochimaru's research on Kimimaro's condition was more in-depth than in the original world. Through his research, he discovered that the key to Kimimaro's disease was his blood, and the source of the blood was the bone marrow, which was the Kagaya clan's prided blood limit, the corpse bone vein. In addition, Lotus of the Mist Squad mentioned to Kimimaro before, which made Orochimaru certain that this disease wasn't caused by Kimimaro alone, but a chronic disease that plagued the entire Kagaya clan. Maybe if I can solve this disease, I can completely solve the secret of the corpse bone vein. Thinking of this, a figure flashed in Orochimaru's mind. It was Kamikaze of Amatsukami. In the current shinobi world, there were only 3 people who had mastered the corpse bone vein, besides Kimimaro and Lotus. The third person was Kamikaze of Amatsukami. In terms of the power of the corpse bone vein, Kamikaze of Amatsukami was obviously stronger than Kimimaro and Lotus. According to the rumors, in the battle where Mai destroyed the village, Kamikaze of Amatsukami easily cut open the Susanoo of the mysterious Uchiha of the Akatsuki. The indestructible Susanoo was cut open by a small bone blade. If it wasn't for the information he received from many sources, Orochimaru wouldn't have believed it. It was also this battle that made Orochimaru realize that the upper limit of the corpse bone vein was much higher than he thought. That's why he was so concerned about Kimimaro's disease. He felt that as long as he could solve the cause of Kimimaro's disease, he could uncover the secret of the corpse bone vein and obtain the corpse bone vein that was as powerful as Kamikaze of Amatsukami. I'm really curious, how did Kamikaze solve the blood disease of the corpse bone vein? In front of the gate of the Sound Village, Yugo, Haku, Kiromu, and Duo Yuyao were already waiting there. When they saw Kimimaro coming, they immediately went to greet him. Yugo asked, "Does Orochimaru Sama have any orders? Let's talk on the way." Before he finished speaking, Kimimaro's figure flashed and flew towards the direction of Mai. The others didn't say anything else and followed him. In the Sound Village, Orochimaru's position was the highest. After him was the research faction led by Yakushido and the other 4 people led by Kimimaro. This time, because they were going to Konoha, it was inconvenient for Yamato, who had the wood release, so only Kimimaro, Yugo, and Haku participated in the mission. Yugo had the ability to communicate with birds and beasts, and he could sense chakra from a distance. Besides his amazing combat power, he was also an excellent perception-type ninja. Under Orochimaru's guidance, Haku was getting stronger and stronger. Even if he fought against Kimimaro, he could still fight back and forth. Kimimaro could clearly feel that Haku, who was kind by nature, didn't use his full strength. So, let alone Kimimaro, even Haku himself didn't know how strong Haku was. Plus, Haku had learned medical ninjutsu from Yakushido, so he could play the role of a medical ninja. As for Kidomaru, Duo Yuya, and the other three people, they were just small characters in Kimimaro's eyes. They were insignificant, so he didn't need to care about them. There are only 2 days left in this month. If you have a monthly vote, don't forget to vote. Thank you. Chapter 940. At the gate of the Rock Village, Inoki, with his hands behind his back, looked at his granddaughter, Heitu, as well as Dedale and the others with a serious expression. Be careful on the road. I will also rush to my later. Heitu waved his hand. I'm not a child. I'll be careful. Staring at Heitu, Inoki warned Dedale again. You are not allowed to sneak away in this Chunin exam. You must sweep away all the contestants from the other villages and make our rock village famous. Dedale muttered, so troublesome. Inoki then said to himself, there is nothing to worry about in Mai, but Cloud, San Crypsis, and the Mist Village will definitely not send their true genin. So you must not be careless. Because of the previous Kage assembly, the Kages had been in Mai for almost half a year. Plus, during this period, they were also involved in the Uchiha clan's rebellion, so they had already clearly investigated which experts in genin were in Mai, so they were not worried that Mai would play tricks in this Chunin exam. On the contrary, the real opponents of this Chunin exam were the great ninja villages of the 5 great ninja villages, except for Mai. Almost at the same time, the teams of Cloud and San Crypsis villages also set off from their respective villages and rushed to Mai in an uninhabited forest in my village. Hyojin untied the gourd magic tool tied to his waist and threw it to Itachi. I'll have to trouble you for this period of time. Please rest assured, I won't let anyone see any flaws. After steadily catching the gourd magic tool thrown by Hyojin, Itachi quickly promised. Hyojin's current identity was Naruto. Not only was he important, but he also received attention from many parties, so if he wanted to leave the village, he must arrange a substitute in advance. In the village, only Jishuei and Itachi, who were proficient in illusions and had Chakra's meticulous control, could use the transformation technique to disguise as Hyojin. However, in terms of adaptability, Jishuei was not as good as Itachi. Moreover, as the captain of the police force, Jishuei also received attention from various parties. Therefore, Hyojin gave the task of pretending to be him to Itachi. Just in case, Hyojin also temporarily handed over the gourd immortal treasure that sealed the dragon vein to Itachi. With the dragon vein chakra in the gourd as a cover, even the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan would find it difficult to see through Itachi's disguise. At this time, Itachi hesitated and said, Senpai, I heard that the opponents in this Chunin test are very strong. Hyojin nodded lightly and said with a smile, yes, so this is a good opportunity to gain experience. It's not easy to find these experts to spar with. Itachi asked, then is there any hope for Sasuke to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan this time? With Sasuke's current pupil power, as long as there is enough stimulation, there is a possibility for him to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan at any time, and this Chunin test is indeed a heaven-sent opportunity. After a pause, Hyojin continued, so you and your parents have to put pressure on him together. Let him take the first place in this Chunin test as his goal. Itachi replied, I understand. After explaining a few more things to Itachi about disguising as Naruto, Hyojin no longer delayed. His figure flashed and disappeared into the woods. Soon, Hyojin, who was flying at high speed in the Tenseigan chakra mode, arrived at the air fortress above the sea. Seeing Xiang Lin, Hyojin ordered, "Get ready. Come with me to participate in my Chunin test." After being taken aback, Xiang Lin asked with joy, "My lord, can I go with you?" Hyojin nodded. This time, he not only wants to use the Thunder Clone to participate in the Chunin test, but also to bring Xiang Lin with him, so that she can follow him and gain knowledge. Simply having power, but not knowing how to use it is meaningless. This is reflected vividly in the body of the ancestor of Chakra, Kagaya. And Xiang Lin is a backup that Hyojin has specially prepared for himself. Once he dies in the ritual of Kekiai Trap, or some other accident occurs, he will need Xiang Lin to resurrect him and give him a chance to make up for his mistakes. But if he really dies, then Xiang Lin, as his backup, will actually lose the protection that he has always provided. So during this period of time, Xiang Lin's own safety has become a very serious problem. If she becomes the prey of others before Xiang Lin can resurrect Hyojin, then the backup that Hyojin has prepared will be meaningless. So, Hyojin has been training Xiang Lin to improve her strength. However, Aero was the only living person in the Sky Fortress. Xiang Lin could only spar with Aero, so the results of her training weren't very good. After all, knowledge, experience, and so on were also important components of one's strength. Sparring with only one person wouldn't be effective in accumulating experience and training one's judgment. Gar on the side asked, "My lord, what about me?" Looking at Gar's face full of expectation, Hyojin shook his head. "You can't go. Tailed Beast Chakra is too special. Once it is released, it will be difficult to hide. In addition, Gar's ability to control sand is also very conspicuous, so he can't risk taking Gara to participate in this Chunin exam. Because if the Akatsuki organization knows that Gara is still alive, it will definitely endanger the safety of the air fortress and jeopardize their bloodline trap plan." Hearing this, Gara lowered his head in disappointment. Xiang Lin thought that Gara can go with him, but now that he heard that Gara will stay in the air fortress alone again, his happy expression also became gloomy. Seeing this, Hyojin thought for a moment and suddenly had an idea. On the old side of the country of whirlpools, a young boy with light blue short hair was holding a water bottle and drinking water in big mouthfuls, muttering, "Where's the promised teammate? What the hell is the village doing?" Swoosh, swoosh, at this moment, two figures landed on open space not far from the young boy. The young boy immediately looked over, and then his pupils suddenly shrank because of the two people who suddenly appeared. One of them is carrying one of the Mist 7 ninja blades, the shark skin. After his eyes stayed on the shark skin for a while, the young boy then looked at the two people who suddenly appeared. The two people are not tall, about 15 or 16 years old. They're wearing cloaks in the style of the Mist, and they also have a mask on their faces, looking very mysterious. The young boy waved his hand. "I am Ghost Lantern Mizukic. Hey, are you two my teammates this time?" The figure with the shark skin on his back took a step forward and said lightly, "I am Kirin, the captain this time. There's only a day and a half left in November. Please support the students who have monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts yesterday. Thank you, everyone." Chapter 941. While walking on the road, Mizuko's eyes moved from time to the big knife on Kirin's back, and she smiled and said, "Captain, can you lend me the Mizuko?" Kirin glanced at Mizuko and said, "If you can beat me, the Mizuko is yours." Mizuko immediately remembered the scene of being electrocuted by Kirin's thunder release not long ago, and subconsciously shuddered. There is no doubt that this Kirin, who is proficient in thunder release, is Hyojin, who controls the thunder release clone. Because Kuroto didn't accelerate the growth of this clone, whether it was the head or the voice, the clone seemed to be only 16 or 17 years old. It's just that the white eyes in the eye sockets are too conspicuous, so Hyojin wore a special mask. This is not uncommon in the shinobi world. Ninjas wearing sunglasses, masks, and even bandages are everywhere, because ninjas themselves are a profession that needs to hide their own information. And the other person beside him is naturally Xiang Lin. At this time, because Xianglin is wearing the lighter Type 3 biological armor, so her size is obviously smaller than when she was wearing the bulky Type 2 biological armor before. She was only 12 years old, but at this time she looks only 15 or 16 years old, just in time to participate in this Chunin exam. In addition, the Type 3 biological armor has the ability to isolate Chakra's perception and pupillary insight. As long as Xianglin is careful, she will basically not be exposed. Moreover, Xianglin's face is also wearing a special mask to conceal the Rinnegan in her eye sockets that can't be closed. After a while, Mizuko asked with boredom, "Captain, why haven't I seen you in the village before? With your strength, you shouldn't be unknown." Because of Hyojin, Orochimaru's life trajectory has changed, so Mizuko was not caught by Orochimaru for research. As a result, in a mist village where talents were gradually withering, Shueiyu relied on her own excellent talent and background to quickly rise among her peers. Yagura also immediately discovered this good seedling and cultivated it. So, the current Mizukage was much stronger than the Mizukage who had been locked up in the laboratory by Orochimaru for most of the time in the original space-time. Because of this, Hyojin selected him from dozens of mist rookies as his teammate for the Chunin exam. However, this guy seemed to have some kind of paranoid interest in the 7 ninja blades of the mist. Whenever he saw Hyojin carrying the Great Blade, he would pester Hyojin again and again, trying to snatch the Great Blade. Hyojin did not waste his breath either. He directly used Thunderbolt Escape to educate Watermoon. Only then did Watermoon become well-behaved. Looking at the curious Shueiyu, Hyojin smiled and said, "You want to know my identity? As long as you can beat me, I'll tell you everything." TSK. Shueiyu spat softly. Seeing that Shueiyu was beaten by Hyojin, Xianglin on the side snickered. Shueiyu turned her gaze to Xianglin and asked angrily, "What's so funny? I was just restrained by his Thunderbolt Escape. Otherwise, he may not be my opponent." Xianglin wanted to explain a few words, but for a while, she didn't know how to speak. In the end, she could only endure it. Seeing that Xianglin directly ignored her, Shueiyu became even more annoyed. "What bad luck! Both of my teammates are freaks." A few days later, the three of them finally arrived outside the village of Mai. Mai is already bustling, coupled with the Chunin exam jointly held by the 5 great shinobi villages, so the road was already very lively before they even got close to the village. Looking at the merchants and tourists coming and going, Shueiyu, who came to Mai for the first time, had a curious expression on her face. Tsuke, the land of fire is really bustling. Although it was not the first time that Xianglin came to Mai, it was the first time that she helped Itachi and Shinichi transplant the Hashirama cells at night. So it was also the first time that she saw such a bustling place. So, she also looked around with a face full of excitement. Hyojin found many shinobi who came to Mai to participate in the Chunin exam. Among the crowd, he even saw Kimamaro's group representing the Sound Village. Kimamaro, Yugo, Haku. Looking at these familiar figures, Hyojin raised the corner of his mouth. In the distance, Kimamaro and the others seemed to have noticed Hyojin's group. After all, the Mist Village was one of the 5 great shinobi villages, so the team sent by the Mist Village to participate in the Chunin exam also received a lot of attention. Kimamaro murmured, "The Mist Village?" Haku also looked over, and his eyes fell on the greatsword on Hyojin's back. He explained to his companions, "That's one of the Mist's 7 shinobi swords, the greatsword. Since he is qualified to carry the greatsword, it means that the one wearing the mask is the new 7 shinobi swordsman." After hearing this, Onijimaru, Toyo, and the other 3 people's expressions changed. Although they suffered a big loss in the 3rd Shinobi War, the name of the Mist 7 shinobi swordsman is still very famous in the shinobi world. They belong to the elite force of Jonin. Therefore, even if the Mist ninja with the greatsword on his back isn't as strong as the previous shinobi swordsman, he can't be underestimated. Kimamaro also remembered the Akatsuki organization's Mist team. In the Mist team, Bipod Juzo held the beheading sword, and the Dry Persimmon Demon Mermaid held the double blade flounder. Yugo said to Onijimaru and the others, If you meet them in the exam, you have to be careful. Obviously, Yugo also remembered the previous battle with the Akatsuki organization's Mist team. The four of them attacked together, but they still couldn't deal with the four of them. It can be seen how strong the other party is. Onijimaru and the others nodded quickly, then looked at each other and saw the eagerness on each other's faces. Because in the state of activating the curse seal, the three of them can temporarily rival a Tokubetsu Jonin, so they don't think that in this Chunin exam, there will be any strong enemy that they can't deal with. It didn't take long for Hyojin and the other ninjas to arrive at the gate of Mai. At the gate, Mai specially set up a checkpoint, so ninjas from other villages who want to enter might have to go through the checkpoint to confirm their identity and register. Looking at the Uchiha clansmen outside the checkpoint who had activated their Sharingan and were wearing the uniform of the police force, Xianglin nervously said to Hyojin, Captain, what should we do? In order to check the identity at the checkpoint, it is necessary to take off the disguise, which means to take off the mask, so Xianglin is worried that his Rinnegan will be exposed. Hyojin smiled and said, Don't worry. After saying that, Hyojin led Xianglin and Mizukage into the checkpoint and didn't stop all the way, directly passing through the checkpoint and entering Mai. In the checkpoint, whether it is the Hyuga clansmen, the Uchiha clansmen who are responsible for checking the identity, or the Yamanaka clansmen who are responsible for perceiving the authenticity of chakra, all of them were stunned and stood in the same place. Only Jishuei, the captain of the police force, was seriously helping Hyojin and the others to fill in the village registration. It's the last day. I beg for the monthly votes. Chapter 942. My village, in a remote and uninhabited grove. What exactly is going on with this Chunin exam? Is it a trap set by Amatsukami to lure us into action? After learning that the 5 great shinobi villages are going to jointly hold the Chunin exam in Mai, Obsidian immediately sneaked into Mai and found Hyojin, disguised by Itachi at this time, and asked directly. After asking, Obsidian frowned and looked at the Hyojin in front of him. For some reason, he always felt that there was something wrong with this Hyojin in front of him, but he couldn't tell what exactly was wrong. At this time, Itachi replied according to the words that Hyojin had arranged in advance. This Chunin exam, jointly held by the 5 great shinobi villages, was initiated by Rock Village. It has nothing to do with Amatsukami, and there is no trap. It's you guys who are thinking too much. Humph! Obsidian sneered disdainfully. At first, he was just a little suspicious, but now after listening to Hyojin, he was suddenly sure that this Chunin exam jointly held by the 5 great shinobi villages must be a conspiracy of Amatsukami. Otherwise, it is impossible for the 5 great shinobi villages to hold such a Chunin exam for no reason, and it is said that even the daimyo of the 5 major countries will be invited to attend. Glancing at Hyojin in front of him with a look of contempt, Obsidian snorted. This idiot! It's obviously Naruto, but he's kept in the dark. It seems that it was a mistake to cooperate with him before. With a sense of contempt, coupled with the Runaka chakra emitting from Hyojin, Obsidian no longer felt that something was wrong before and directly leaned back into the twisting vortex and disappeared silently. Looking at the place where Obsidian disappeared, Itachi, who was pretending to be Hyojin, pondered. He didn't understand why Kuroto left in such a hurry, as if he was running for his life, even though he clearly told Kuroto that the Chunin exam wasn't a trap and had nothing to do with Amatsukami. Could it be that this is also within Senior's expectations, inside the Uchiha Patriarch's mansion? Father, Mother, please rest assured, in this Chunin exam, I will definitely defeat all the opponents and successfully advance to Chunin. Sasuke had a confident expression as he faced his parents and brother. Fuyue pondered for a moment and asked, I heard that Rock Village's Dead Ale is also participating in this Chunin exam. Hearing his father take the initiative to mention Dead Ale, Sasuke's gaze turned a bit colder, and he promptly promised, Father, just wait. I'll definitely teach that guy a lesson. Although it is currently impossible to prove that Dead Ale is Amatsukami's Xidagarba, Sasuke is obviously not going to reason with Dead Ale. In his eyes, Amatsukami took away his father's Manjikyu Sharingan, and is his irreconcilable enemy. Therefore, Dedael, who is suspected to be a member of Amitsukami, is also an enemy that he must defeat, Mikoto said with some worry. After all, the other party is an expert who has mastered the dust release. Sasuke, don't force yourself too much. Sasuke's face turned red. Mother, I'm not a child anymore. Fuyue nodded. Well, work hard. Don't lose face for our Uchiha clan. Yes. With high fighting spirit, Sasuke quietly left the room. After Sasuke left, Mikoto sighed. Sigh. I don't know if it's right or wrong for us to put pressure on him like this, Fuyue said in a deep voice. Being born in the Uchiha clan, this is the fate he must bear. The shadow clone that Itachi left at home said, Jishuei and Shinichi will monitor the whole Chunin exam. Sasuke may suffer some losses and be injured, but his life should not be in danger. Fuyue was very open-minded. Suffering some losses and injuries is not a bad thing. He will understand our painstaking efforts in the future. Walking out of his mansion, Sasuke's eyes immediately turned cold, and he muttered, Dedael. At this moment, he has already regarded Dedael as his prey. Because if Dedael is really a member of Amitsukami, he could take advantage of the opportunity of the Chunin exam to fight Dedael fair and square, and then subdue Dedael with Genjutsu, and from Dedael, find out information about Amitsukami, and then find clues about the pair of Manjikyu Sharingan that was taken away from his father. As for whether or not he can win against Dedael, Sasuke is not worried, because as far as he knows, Dedael is only 14 or 15 years old, but he became famous earlier, so he feels that his chances of winning are very high. Suddenly, Sasuke turned his head and looked at a few sparrows on a branch of a big tree not far away. Hey, there's no chakra reaction? Just now, he sensed a gaze behind him, but he found that it was just a few sparrows on the tree, ordinary sparrows without any chakra fluctuations. Am I being paranoid? After thinking to himself, Sasuke's footsteps didn't stop. Today, Kakashi prepared for him, Naruto, and Sakura for the Chunin exam, so he can't be late. In the hotel that accommodates ninjas from various villages, Yugo stretched out his hand and caught a sparrow that fell from the sky, and after listening for a while, he immediately said to Kimimaro in the room, The birds have already remembered the smell of Uchiha Sasuke. He was born with the ability to communicate with birds, so he can use ordinary birds without chakra fluctuations to investigate information. He is a very different kind of ninja that can't be guarded against. Kimimaro nodded. Unlike other ninjas who participated in the Chunin exam, Kimimaro doesn't care about passing the Chunin exam. He only cares about one thing, and that is the task that Orochimaru gave him. Kill Uchiha Sasuke in the Chunin exam. Suddenly, Kimimaro's eyes turned cold, and he looked at a corner of the room. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, Haku threw a Senbon, which nailed a small black dot in the corner. When Haku got closer, he found that the black dot was a puppet spider made of wood. So he said, It's a puppet from a Sancrypsis. Kimimaro retracted his gaze and coldly snorted, Humph, don't worry about them. In the room next to the Sancrypsis, Kankaro's eyes twitched, and he quickly cut off the chakra connection. Shoja looked at him and asked, How is it? Kankaro shook his head with an embarrassed expression. Cloud Village, Rock Village, and Sound Ninjas, all of them instantly noticed my puppet that had sneaked in. Shoju frowned. It seems that they're all equipped with perception-type ninjas. Kankaro said, I have a bad feeling the opponents this time don't seem to be simple. Shoja nodded in agreement. Then he thought of something and asked, Right, what about the Mist Village? I just saw the people from the Mist Village check into the hotel. Didn't they notice your puppet? Kankaro replied, No, they weren't in the room at all. On the street, looking at the big sign of the gambling house in front of him, and the odds of each village placed in front of the gate, Mizukage asked Hyojin with a puzzled face, Captain, why did we come to this place? The second update is the last 12 hours of the month. Everyone, don't forget. Also, thank you to the students who tipped yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 943. The liveliness in front of the casino far exceeded Hyojin's expectations. He even found many tourists and businessmen from other countries coming to Mai. Why are the odds for Rock Village so low? Amateurs. There's a member of Amit Sukami in Rock Village's team. Participating in the Chunin exam would be enough to sweep everyone. What? A member of Amit Sukami participating in the Chunin exam? That's impossible, right? Would Amit Sukami be so bored? Even if Rock Village's Daedara isn't a member of Amit Sukami, with his strength, passing the Chunin exam would be easy. According to insider information, Daedara is likely to have mastered the unique Kekiai Genkai dust release. So if you want to be safe, you should bet on Rock Village. Bah, the odds for Rock Village are so low. Even if you win, how much can you win? It's better to bet on an unknown team. The odds at the entrance were also surrounded by people, and everyone was pointing and exchanging information they had heard. Listening to the discussions of the crowd, Shuizuki also became interested and said with a smile, Amit Sukami will participate in the Chunin exam. Hey, this is the funniest joke I've heard this year. Xiang Lin heard this and looked at Hyojin with a strange expression. Hyojin, on the other hand, looked indifferently at the crowd in front of him and walked towards the odds board. The crowd that was pushed away was just about to curse, but they found that Hyojin was dressed like a ninja with an exaggerated-looking sword on his back, so they all shut up in embarrassment. Squeezing in front of the odds board, Hyojin found that the odds for Mai, Rock Village, Cloud Village, and Sand Crypsis were the only villages on the board. The three representing the Mist Village, the Sound Ninjas who just registered today, as well as the Grass Ninjas and Takanabu who haven't yet arrived and haven't appeared on the odds board yet. As for the odds that have been announced, Rock Village has the lowest odds, followed by Mai and Cloud Village, and Sand Crypsis has the highest for the time being. After carefully looking at the odds, Hyojin's eyes narrowed, and then he squeezed out of the crowd and strode into the casino. Because of the Chunin exam, a large number of tourists have poured into the village recently, so the inside of the casino is more lively than the entrance. However, the clothes of Hyojin and his party are too conspicuous, especially the mist head protector on the three of them. Let people know at a glance that they are the ninjas of the Mist Village, one of the 5 great shinobi villages, so immediately a shop assistant came forward and greeted Hyojin warmly. Hyojin didn't talk nonsense and said directly, I want to bet. The shop assistant was startled for a moment, but he soon regained his smile. Sir, which village do you want to bet on? Hyojin said, I bet 50 million on myself. As soon as he finished speaking, the gamblers in the casino all looked over. 50 million was not a small amount, not to mention that they were betting on themselves. So all of a sudden, Hyojin and the other two became the focus of the entire casino. The shop assistant didn't expect Hyojin to place such a heavy bet. He tentatively asked, Excuse me, are you a ninja representing the Mist Village to participate in this Chunin exam? Hyojin nodded and said, Yes. After confirming the identity of the other party, the shop assistant said, Well, please pay the bet. I will handle the formalities for you immediately. Hyojin shook his head. I have no money. The shop assistant's face stiffened. Sir, please don't joke. I'm not joking. After saying that coldly, Suijin brandished the great sword on his back with a swoosh sound. Seeing Hyojin suddenly waving the sword, everyone in the casino was shocked, and the shop assistant stuttered and said, Sir, don't be impulsive. This is mine. You will be punished if you mess around here. Shuizuki was shocked and whispered, Captain, this is mine. If you rob here, I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to escape. Xiang Lin also became nervous and quickly used Kagura's eye to sense the surroundings, looking for a safe way to retreat. Just when everyone thought that Hyojin was going to commit murder, they heard Hyojin say slowly, This is the most powerful ninja sword among the 7 ninja swords of the Mist Village. It's called Shark Muscle, and the market price is definitely more than 50 million. My bet is on it. Yeah. The casino suddenly became very quiet. Shuizuki's mouth was wide open, and her face was stunned. Seeing that Hyojin didn't seem to be joking, the shop assistant took the big sword Shark Muscle from Hyojin's hand and said, Sir, please wait a moment. Once the inspection is completed, We will immediately handle the formalities for you." Hyojin nodded calmly. Soon, the casino found a professional ninja and appraiser. Since shark muscle had the special ability to absorb and release chakra, and it was very famous, its appearance was not a secret. Therefore, the casino quickly completed the appraisal. While solemnly storing this famous murderous blade in the ninja world, they also handled the betting procedures for Hyojin. At the same time, the Mist Village also appeared on the betting odds board. Even when they returned to the hotel, Shuizuki still hadn't recovered from the shock. After a while, she asked Kuroto, "Captain, did we just escort the sharkskin out?" Hyojin answered casually, "Yes." Shuizuki said, "If we lose, will shark muscle belong to the casino?" Hyojin glanced at Shuizuki and said, "Yes." Shuizuki held her forehead with her hand and said, "Shark muscle is going to be the first ninja sword in the history of the Mist Village to be lost in the casino." Hyojin smiled and said, "I will lose." The 200 million commission that Hyojin earned from the village last time seemed to be a lot, but he spent more than half of it to upgrade and rebuild the Sky Fortress. In addition, Hyojin developed the Type 3 biological armor some time ago, which consumed a lot of money. Then, he purchased a large number of medicinal materials and potions, so he was not very rich now. This was also one of the reasons why he agreed to hold the Chunin exam. As long as there was such a large-scale competition, naturally, there would be people who would open the bet. And as long as someone opened the bet, he would be able to make some money. Anyway, he only lacked 2 clones, the Thunder Release clone and the Yang Release clone. Among them, the Thunder Release clone had already been cloned and only needed to be developed. He needed to invest a lot of money, so the Yang Release clone was the only clone left. Therefore, his lack of funds was not too big. This time, as long as there were no accidents, he could easily solve it. However, he did not expect the Chunin exam to be so grand. Even the big names of the 5 major countries would be invited to attend. Therefore, there were a lot of tourists and businessmen from various countries entering Mai, which resulted in a lot of money. Looks like I can make a lot of money this time. When he thought about how he could easily make up the last gap in funds, Hyojin could not help but laugh. The first update is here. Thank you to the students who voted this month. Thank you, everyone. It's going to be a new month soon, so I beg for everyone's guaranteed monthly votes. Thank you. Chapter 944. 3 days later, with the arrival of the ninjas from the Kusanagi and Taki villages in Mai, the Chunin exam, jointly organized by the 5 villages, is about to begin. Before the official start, in order to make the Chunin exam smooth, Konoha temporarily held a gathering. Mai summoned all the ninjas from each village who participated in the Chunin exam to the playground of the ninja school and read out the rules and regulations of the Chunin exam in public. On the rostrum, the Kage, representing the 5 villages, took their seats in turn and looked at the ninjas from each village who participated in the Chunin exam on the playground. Itachi, as the vice principal of the ninja school, was reading out the rules of the Chunin exam. Because the main purpose of holding the Chunin exam is to strengthen the cooperation ability between the major villages, so while emphasizing the competitive nature, the rules strictly prohibit meaningless killing in the exam. In short, accidents are allowed in this Chunin exam, but malicious killing is absolutely not allowed. On the playground, the ninjas from each village who participated in the Chunin exam also took the opportunity to observe each other. Hyojin, who was also on the playground, glanced around and found that the number of ninjas participating in the Chunin exam was roughly the same as the situation he had known in advance. Mai sent a total of 30 squads with a total of 90 ninjas. Rock, Cloud, and Sand Crypsis each had 6 squads with 18 ninjas. The Mist Village had only 1 squad with 3 ninjas. The Sound Village had 2 squads with 6 ninjas. The Kusanagi Village had 10 squads with 30 ninjas. The Taki Village had 3 squads with Fu, who was originally in Mai. There were a total of 9 ninjas. 8 shinobi villages, a total of 64 squads, and 192 shinobi. Hinting with his eyes to Xianglin, Dui on the Cloud Village's side, as well as Sasuke, who was standing with Naruto and Sakura, Hyojin lowered his voice and ordered, "Write it down." "Yes." Xiang Lin hurriedly nodded. Due to Kagura's mind's eye, as long as Xiang Li remembered the target's chakra, she could track the target's position within a range of several dozen miles. Therefore, as long as Xiang Lin memorized Darui and Sasuke's chakra, Hyojin could easily track their whereabouts. And in this Chunin exam, he has no interest in ordinary opponents at all. The only ones who can attract his attention are Dead Ale, Druid, and a few others. Especially the Druid who has the Kekiai limit of the Mist release. He is the primary target of Hyojin because his Thunder release clone has encountered a little trouble when developing the Mist release, so he needs to learn from the real Mist release ninja. As for Sasuke, if no one stood up to educate Sasuke during the entire exam, he wouldn't mind doing it himself. Shuizuki also looked around and whispered, "Captain, it seems that only our Mist village has a team. Other villages have at least 2 teams. This is not good for us." On the field, the ninjas of each village have gathered together with the ninjas of the same village, and each village has a large number of people. Even a newly established Sound village has 6 people. Only the Mist village has only 3 people standing alone in the middle of the field. It is very eye-catching. Feeling the scrutinizing eyes of other ninjas, Xiang Lin also became nervous. Hyojin observed Sasuke, Naruto, Ningxi, Zuin, and other little guys in the distance, and found that they were obviously very nervous, but they were trying to pretend to be calm, so he secretly smiled. At the same time, he was keenly aware that there were a few eyes also staring at Sasuke in the crowd. One of them was Kimimaro of the Sound Village. Although it was faintly discernible, it contained a trace of cold and determined killing intent, which made Hyojin a little confused. The other one seemed to be hidden in the group of ninjas of the Grass Village beside him. Grass Ninja. In an instant, Hyojin's face changed because he found a very familiar person among the group of Grass Ninjas around him, and he was sticking out his tongue and licking his lips. At this time, the other party also noticed Hyojin's gaze, turned his head, and looked over, revealing a creepy smile. Hyojin's face was full of black lines on the roof of the teaching building on the other side. Kakashi, Asuma, Metke, Kurenai, and Mute, these instructing ninjas, also took the opportunity of the ninjas of the villages gathered on the field to observe. After a moment, Kurenai said with some worry, "The ninjas sent by the Rock Village and the Cloud Village are all masters. I'm afraid this time will be troublesome." Guy laughed and said, "Failure is also a kind of growth." After a round of observation, Asuma's eyes fell on the 3 people in the field. He frowned and said, "The Mist Village is very abnormal. They actually sent only 3 genin." Mute nodded in agreement. "And 2 of them are wearing masks. This should not be allowed, right?" The ninjas on the field were dressed in all kinds of clothes. Some wore sunglasses, some wore masks, some wore bamboo hats, and some were even wrapped in bandages, only revealing their facial features. But the only 2 people who wore masks and covered their faces were Hyojin and Xiang Lin, who represented the Mist Village. Kurenai also turned her eyes to the 3 people. There's a rumor in the village that as soon as the Mist ninjas entered the village, they bet Sharkskin, one of the Mist 7 ninja swords, on their own victory. Mute laughed and said, "This is too stupid. Even a fool would know to bet on the Rock Village." Halfway through the sentence, Mute realized that he had let the cat out of the bag. He quickly covered his mouth. At this time, Kakashi took out the village registration copy, looked at it, and said, "There are a total of 3 people registered in the Mist Village. The captain is called Kirin, and the members are called Xiang Lin and Shueiwe." In the village registration copy in Kakashi's hand, the appearance of Kirin and Xiang Lin after taking off their masks was clearly recorded, but both of them had very ordinary black pupils in their eye sockets. Seeing Kakashi pondering, Guy asked, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong?" Staring at the picture of Kirin on the village registration, Kakashi wanted to say something, but stopped. "I always feel that this Kirin is a bit." Guy leaned over and glanced at the village registration copy in Kakashi's hand, and immediately looked surprised. "Hey, Kakashi, this Kirin looks a bit like you." Hearing Guy's words, Asuma, red, and Mute quickly gathered around and looked at the picture of Kirin on the village registration. In terms of facial features, there was still a very obvious difference between Kirin and Kakashi, but there were some similarities in their demeanor. Asma curled his lips and said, "Not really." At this time, staring at the picture of Kirin, Red gradually frowned. "Why do I feel that this Kirin is more like a mirror?" Kakashi put away the village registration copy, looked at the playground, and said, "I always feel that there is something wrong with the 3 people in the Mist Village. Later, I will arrange for the Umbu to test them. On the first day of December, I beg for everyone's guaranteed monthly tickets. In addition, I would like to thank the students who gave gifts yesterday. Thank you all." Chapter 945. Because they were only announcing the rules of the exam, the meeting didn't take long. On the way back to the hotel, Kuroda was still thinking about the Kusanagi shinobi who smiled at him before, feeling depressed. Why is it that every time I want to cause trouble, I always meet him? There is no doubt that the Kusanagi ninja was Orochimaru in disguise. In the original story, Orochimaru also pretended to be a ninja from the Kusanagi village and participated in the Chunin exam. While observing Sasuke's performance in the exam, he looked for an opportunity to engrave a curse on Sasuke. And in this time and space, Orochimaru made the same choice. It can be seen that he didn't change his evil intentions. He still wanted to awaken Uchiha Sharingan. But he learned his lesson from the past. He knew that it would be too difficult to deal with Uchiha without Manjiki Sharingan. So he locked his target on Sasuke, who hasn't awakened his Manjiki Sharingan, but is still talented and has the title of genius. At the same time, this also explains why Kimimaro showed killing intent to Sasuke just now. Obviously, this was deliberately arranged by Orochimaru, because Hyojin knows that Orochimaru is used to using the most direct and cruel way to test whether a ninja is valuable or not, and letting Orochimaru test Sasuke, the genius of Uchiha, is a basic operation. In this regard, even Hyojin was influenced by Orochimaru. It's already chaotic enough, and now there's another Orochimaru. What a headache. Hyojin secretly sighed. Because of the flaws of the undead reincarnation, Orochimaru's spiritual body is not only weaker than other ninjas of the same level, but his combat power is also fluctuating irregularly. However, the current situation was a little special. Orochimaru was currently residing in Medicine Master Pocket's body in the form of a spirit body. Logically speaking, in this form of possession, Orochimaru's spirit body needed to suppress the body's original owner's spirit body to be able to freely control the body. But the problem was that the apothecary pocket was willing to give up his body. So, not only did Orochimaru not need to expend energy to suppress the apothecary pocket, but he could also use the apothecary pocket's body without any worries. When he was weak, he could even borrow the apothecary pocket's spiritual power. In addition, because there are 2 spirits in his body, Orochimaru's current situation is somewhat similar to the perfect Jinchuriki. Even if he accidentally falls into some kind of illusion, the apothecary pouch's spirit in his body can awaken him from the illusion, just like how the tailed beast awakens the Jinchuriki. That was why Orochimaru, who grasped the impure earth reincarnation 8-branch technique and various other forbidden techniques, as well as being able to instantly enter the immortal mode and freely control the energy of nature, was very difficult to deal with. His fighting strength was definitely not below Dale's. Whoosh! Whoosh at this time. Tumai Zumbu arrived in front of Hyojin and said to Hyojin and Xianglin, "I'm sorry. This is a temporary inspection. Please take off your masks." In an instant, the ninjas of the various villages who were dismissed from the playground together cast their eyes over. Many of them were also very curious about the faces under the masks of Hyojin and Xianglin. After all, spying for information is an instinct engraved in the genes of every ninja. Glancing at the 2 Umbu in front of him, Hyojin said coldly, "Temporary inspection? Humph, I have never heard of such a thing." As someone who participated in the whole process of formulating the rules of the Chunin exam, Naruto is very clear that the village did not design any temporary inspection at all. Because the essence of this Chunin exam is to strengthen the exchange and cooperation between the 5 great ninja villages. Even if there is suspicion, it will be investigated in private, and it is impossible for such a blatant inspection. Therefore, this is most likely a consultant elder who is suspicious of his disguised identity and temporarily arranged a probe. The Umbu took a step forward and said, "Please cooperate." The ninjas of the various villages on the side also stopped to watch the excitement at this time. In the face of the Umbu's coercion, Hyojin smiled and said, "Of course there is no problem with the inspection. As long as you can beat me, you can inspect however you want. Little brat of the mist, don't be too arrogant." The Umbu's face sank. He didn't expect that the genin of the Mist Village would dare to provoke him as a Tokubetsu Jonin. Looking at this scene, Kuroto of the Rock Village not far away curled his lips and said, "Is the Mist guy so arrogant?" Dedeo on the side also looked over casually. To be honest, even he has a little interest in the masked Hyojin and Xiang Lin at this moment. On the other side, Kankuro of the Sand Crypts smiled and said, "Hee hee, there's a good show to watch." Shoji glanced at Kuroto and said, "I'm really curious about how strong the new Mist Shinobi 7-member swordsman is." He bet on a shark skin as soon as he arrived in Konoha. Sasuke and Kimimaro, who had just walked out of the field, also noticed Suijin, who was confronting the Umbu in the distance, and both of them looked towards him. On a big tree in the distance, Kakashi and several other Jonin teachers were also observing the confrontation in front of the ninja school. Seeing that Hyojin didn't accept the inspection proposed by the Umbu, Asuma smiled and said, "This is good. The Umbu can take this opportunity to test their strength." Kuroto was a little worried. After all, it is just a few genin of a mist. Wouldn't it be too much to let the Umbu test them? Kakashi said, "Don't worry. The other party is definitely not an ordinary genin, and I've already told the Umbu they will be merciful and won't hurt the mist people." Mute smiled and said, "How long do you think the 3 genin of the mist can last?" Asuma said disdainfully, "They even bet their ninja blades in the casino. How strong can they be? I think at most 10 breaths, the Umbu can subdue them." Kuroto also nodded. 10 breaths was already an overestimation for 2 Umbu with the strength of a Jonin and a lot of battle experience against 3 genin. In front of the ninja school, the 2 Umbu looked at each other and nodded. Their mission was to test the 3 genin of the mist, so they didn't reject a low-intensity battle, because only a battle was the best and most real test. Slowly reaching their hands to the long sword on their back, the 2 Umbu lowered their bodies and were ready to fight. Swoosh! At this moment, Hyojin's figure flashed and disappeared. Seeing Suijin disappear into thin air in front of them, the 2 Umbu were taken aback. "Hey, where are you looking at?" A faint voice came from behind and poured into the ears of the 2 Umbu. The 2 Umbu's face changed, and just when they wanted to jump away, 2 muffled sounds were heard, and the 2 of them were hit hard like a kite without a string. At this time, Shuizuki laughed and said, "Of all people to provoke, you just have to provoke him. The first update is here. It will be a new week soon. The ranking will be updated. Please support me." "It's nothing. Please support me." Chapter 946. So fast. In an instant, all the onlookers around let out a sigh of admiration in their hearts. In the eyes of the crowd, although the 2 Umbu underestimated the enemy, the speed of the mist genin with the mask was too fast, and his movements were unusually neat without the slightest hesitation. In the distant tree, Asuma opened his mouth wide and said in surprise, How is this possible? This kind of rapid speed, not to mention genin, even Jonin may not be able to do it." Red and Mute on the side were also surprised. They had expected that the 3 genin sent by the Mist Village would definitely not be simple, but they didn't expect them to be so powerful. Guy, on the other hand, frowned. "Kakashi, this isn't yours." Without waiting for Guy to finish his words, Kakashi nodded with a solemn expression. "Well, it is indeed the Thunder Release stimulation method. The Mist Genin is a master of Thunder Release." Although it was only a short moment, because Kakashi's own thunder release attainment was extremely high, he was keenly aware that the opponent used a technique similar to his own thunder release stimulation method in the attack just now. And from the effect, the opponent's thunder release stimulation method seems to be more thorough and efficient. Judging that the opponent's thunder release attainment may not be lower than his own, Kakashi muttered to himself, I really didn't expect that the Mist Village would have such a master. At the entrance of the ninja school, unlike Kakashi, who was farther away, Sasuke, who was on the sidelines, was shocked at the moment, and the pupils in his eyes unconsciously turned scarlet. Thunder release stimulation method. No, it's not the one that Kakashi-sensei taught me. It's another body stimulation method that I haven't seen before. Because the distance was relatively close, and there were 3 Sharingan. Sasuke saw far more details than Kakashi. He found that the thunder release stimulation method used by the opponent was not a small difference from the one he used. The most obvious thing was that the opponent's stimulation method seemed to be the whole body stimulation method. To Sasuke, who used the local stimulation method, this was a very stupid and dangerous method. One must know that different organs and tissues in the human body could withstand the stimulation of the lightning escape chakra. If the whole body was stimulated indiscriminately, there would be a problem where tissues with high endurance like muscles could withstand it, but organs with low endurance like the heart and lungs could not. This kind of inconsistency would not only fail to enhance the body's functions, but would also cause unpredictable damage to the body. Therefore, Sasuke had always thought that the local stimulation method that Kakashi taught him was a very clever way of using the lightning escape chakra, so he had never thought of improving it. After seeing the Mist Ninja who used the whole body stimulation method, Kuroto suddenly realized that if he could really achieve a comprehensive lightning release chakra stimulation of the body, then the stimulation effect would be far stronger than his local stimulation method. How did he do it? The more he thought about it, the more gloomy Sasuke's face became. In the crowd, Druid, who didn't stop to watch and had been walking towards the hotel, suddenly stopped, and a strange color flashed on his slightly lazy face. As a Kekii Genkai of the Mist Release, as well as the next Reikage that Yondaime Reikage is focusing on, he knows better than anyone that this full-body stimulation is the prototype of Kyumo's lightning release chakra mode, and even he can barely maintain it for a long time. At present, in the entire Cloud Village, or the entire Shinobi world, the only one who can maintain this whole body stimulation method for a long time is Lei Ying of 4 generations. With this thought in mind, Druid carefully looked at the Mist Ninja in the field. On the other side, among the rock ninjas, Deadale smiled and said, "No wonder the Mist only sent 3 guys. It turns out that they are experts." Lightning release is very effective against earth release. So the more powerful the lightning release ninja is, the more competitive the rock ninjas will be, and Deadale is naturally no exception. At this moment, almost all the onlookers were secretly vigilant in their hearts and began to look seriously at the 3 Kiri shinobi, who had the least number of people in the Chunin exam, and even Orochimaru, who was hiding in the crowd, showed a somewhat inquisitive expression. Suddenly, a yellow-haired kid jumped out of the crowd and shouted, "Hey, I'll be your opponent." There is no doubt that this kid who rushed out is none other than Naruto, who Sakura couldn't stop. Hyojin, who was standing quietly in the field, turned his head and looked over, and the corners of his mouth rose under the mask. At this time, Sasuke also walked out with his hands in his pockets and said lightly, "Naruto, you are not his opponent. Step down." Without waiting for Naruto to answer, Sasuke turned his gaze to Hyojin and said coldly, "I'll deal with this guy. I'll let him understand why Mai is the most powerful shinobi village." As soon as Sasuke's voice fell, several people in the crowd looked at him. Among them, Kimamaro's face was gloomy, and his killing intent was boiling. As soon as Deadale saw the 3 Tomo Sharingan in Sasuke's eyes, he inexplicably recalled the experience of being humiliated by Homusubi of Amatsukami, and thought to himself, "Humph, if I meet him in the exam, I must teach this Uchiha a lesson. Hateful Uchiha, hateful Sharingan." Hyojin didn't expect that Sasuke would take the initiative to jump out, so he pondered for a moment and deliberately smiled. I didn't expect that Mai would look for someone to beat up one after another. Sasuke coldly snorted, Humph, arrogant. In front of my Sharingan, you are nothing. Swish after saying that. Sasuke's figure flashed, seemingly wanting to replicate the scene where Hyojin knocked down the two Umbu just now, and use Hyojin's move to knock down Hyojin to regain Mai's face. But just when Sasuke used body flicker technique and lightning release stimulation technique to flash behind Hyojin, Hyojin in front of him disappeared without a trace. Where is he? Sasuke was slightly startled, but he immediately reacted and turned around. Hyojin, who had sneaked behind Sasuke, had already kicked out at this time, and Sasuke had no time to dodge. He could only rely on the 3 Tomo Sharingan in his eye sockets to barely see Hyojin's movements, and raised his arms to protect his chest. Bang! With a muffled sound, Sasuke's whole body was kicked out like a cannonball. And from the time Sasuke used body flicker technique to launch a surprise attack to being sent flying, the whole process only took 1 or 2 breaths, and many people on the sidelines didn't even have time to react before Sasuke was kicked away. At this time, Hyojin lightly said, Hey, you can actually block my kick, not too bad. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who tipped yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 9:47. Damn it, you bastard, Naruto shouted, then immediately made hand seals. Bang, bang, bang. As white smoke gushed out, one by one, Naruto appeared on the street. There were hundreds of them, which made the ninjas of the surrounding villages speechless. Dedale's face sank. This kid, Kuroto on the side, was surprised. Are these all shadow doppelgangers? How can there be so many? In the Kyumo village, Darui turned his eyes to Naruto and said, Multiple shadow doppelganger jutsu? This kid should be Mai's 9 Tails Jinchuriki. I didn't expect him to master this technique at such a young age. Kimimaro, who had been watching Sasuke, also looked at Naruto, and a rare strange expression appeared on his face. Shadow doppelganger jutsu is actually a very high-end ninjutsu, and multiple shadow doppelganger jutsu is listed as a forbidden technique by Mai. Some special Jonin ninjas, and even Jonin ninjas, can't master it. Kankuro of the Sand Crypsis lightly spat. T-Seach, this Chunin exam is too outrageous. What kind of monsters are these? At this moment, Naruto's shadow doppelgangers formed into pairs, and dazzling Rasengan flashed in their hands. Looking at the Rasengan that exuded a biting cold power, the onlookers on the sidelines exclaimed. Xianglin also felt the extreme chakra fluctuations on the Rasengan, and quickly reminded Hyojin, Captain, be careful of those chakra groups. Hyojin waved his hand casually and said to Xianglin and Shuizuki, Don't intervene. Xianglin nodded with slight worry. Shueyu muttered calmly, Interfere? Oh, I'm not that stupid. After instructing Xianglin and Shuizuki, Hyojin smiled at Naruto and said, It looks quite scary, but I don't know if it's just an empty shell like Uchiha just now. Don't insult Sasuke. Countless Naruto shouted at the same time, and at the same time, Naruto also launched an attack towards Hyojin. Seeing the Naruto holding Rasengan in their hands rushing towards him, Kuroto chuckled lightly, and then with a wave of his hands, 2 dazzling electric arcs appeared in his palms without any hand seals. This is a Muji Thunder Release ninjutsu that Hyojin inadvertently developed when he tried to develop Mist Release. This kind of Thunder Release, controlled by both palms, looks somewhat similar to Kakashi's Chidori. But in fact, this Thunder Release ninjutsu has more changes than Chidori. Just like the Mist Release ninjutsu, it can be long or short, curved or straight, and even interweaved into a net. But in terms of power, it is obviously inferior to Kakashi's Chidori. Bang! As Hyojin slammed his palms together, the electric arcs in his palms intertwined and instantly turned into a dazzling, huge electric net, covering all the Naruto that rushed towards him. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, under the attack of the electric net, More than half of Naruto's shadow clones turned into white smoke, and without the support of the shadow clones, many Rasengan quietly disappeared, but many also fell to the ground, making a roar. The ninjas from the surrounding villages scattered like birds and beasts at this time, all retreating far away. No one expected that a seemingly ordinary dispute would turn into such a chaotic situation. Hyojin did not stop attacking, and directly waved his palms. The electric arcs in his palms suddenly turned into two long electric whips. With just a casual sweep, a large number of Naruto's shadow clones were cleared. Whoosh! At this time, in the countless sharp bird cries, Sasuke, who had just been repelled, also launched the Thunder Release Ninjutsu Chidori and rushed towards Hyojin in the field. His speed was so fast that it was like a phantom. At the same time, a shadow rushed out from the side and quietly approached Hyojin. Hyojin in the field leaned to the side, narrowly avoiding Sasuke's surprise attack. And at this time, the approaching shadow suddenly exploded and fiercely rushed towards the shadow projected on the ground by Hyojin. Got it! Sasuke, who had avoided the attack, raised the corner of his mouth. Because of his Sharingan, he had long noticed Shikamaru's hidden sneak attack. But at the moment when the shadow gap was about to touch Hyojin's shadow, Hyojin's body suddenly lit up. This strong light not only dispelled his own shadow, but also made the shadow gap that was close to him dim a lot under the strong light. At this time, two more figures rushed over from the left and right. Hyojin glanced at them. The one on the left who used my whirlwind was Xiaoli, and the one on the right who used 8 trigram palm was his disciple, Ningxi. The two of them cooperated with each other on the left and right, almost blocking all his escape routes. Hey! Chuckling to himself, Kuroto's body flickered, and without dodging, he met the incoming attack head-on. Bang! First, he used a kick to repel Xiaoli's flying kick, and then he lowered his body, easily avoiding Ningxi's soft fist attack. Xiaoli was taken aback. His strength is so great. Ningxi's face was solemn, and he thought, the way he avoided my soft fist was so strange. Did he see through my attack rhythm? No, that's impossible. Swish! Just as Shino, Sakai, and Ningxi on the side were ready to make a move, Jishui, the captain of the My Police Force, arrived at the scene and stopped everyone. Hyojin deliberately glanced at everyone and smiled. Mai's Genin is also very ordinary. It seems that this Chunin exam will be very easy. After saying that, Hyojin led Xianglin and Shueiwei away from the scene like a big villain. Glaring at Hyojin leaving, Naruto shouted, "Hey, in this Chunin exam, Uzumaki Naruto will definitely defeat you." Sasuke's face was gloomy. His prey in this Chunin exam, in addition to Deadale and Kimimaro. Now, there is one more. Cloud Druid also had the idea of competing with Hyojin, because there are not many Thunder Release experts in the shinobi world, and most of them are in the Cloud Village. As for Orochimaru, who was hiding in the crowd, he also looked at Hyojin with interest. It can be said that after this battle, many people have listed the Mist Trio as dangerous people, and the My Cockroaches directly regarded Hyojin as a big villain that must be defeated. Soon, the dispute at the entrance of the ninja school spread to the ears of the 5 Kages who were still inside the ninja school. Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, pretended to ponder for a moment and immediately said, "Since it is just a misunderstanding, then don't complicate the issue." The 3rd generation king and the other elders nodded in agreement. Such small friction is inevitable. Not to mention this time the Umbu took the initiative to find trouble. So in front of the 4 generations and the Mizukage, my side can't pursue the matter. Mei, who was standing beside Yagura, whispered, "Mizukage-sama, who is this Kirin? How come I have never heard of him in the village?" I'm asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 948. Back at the hotel, Shuizuki finally couldn't help but ask the doubts in his heart. "Captain, did you do it on purpose just now?" Although they have only known each other for a few days, Shuizuki is very clear that Hyojin is not an arrogant and troublemaking guy, So the disturbance at the entrance of the ninja school just now was obviously intentional by Hyojin, but he couldn't figure out why Hyojin did this. Sitting down lazily, Suijin said with a playful look on his face, "Don't you think that the Chunin exam this time is a little less intense?" Shuizuki was even more confused. "What does this have to do with us? Don't forget, there are only 3 of us ninjas from the Mist Village in this Chunin exam. You just ridiculed my ninjas in public like that. They are likely to retaliate against us in the exam." Hyojin waved his hand. "It's not very likely." "Huh?" Shuizuki was stunned. Glancing at Shuizuki, Hyojin said, "It's for sure." Shuizuki's face suddenly turned black, speechless. "Then why did you do this?" Hyojin smiled. "Don't you think it's interesting?" "I don't think it's interesting at all," Shuizuki complained, thinking that he will be besieged during the Chunin exam. He felt that the future is bleak. In fact, Hyojin did this today not because he suddenly thought of it, but because he weighed the pros and cons. Perhaps it is because the original intention of holding this Chunin exam is to strengthen the cooperation and exchange between the 5 great shinobi villages. So although each village has tried their best to break the bottom line repeatedly, the smell of gunpowder in the Chunin exam is not strong. The ninjas of each village are very restrained, and even after entering the village for several days, there has not been a single dispute. For me as the host, this is undoubtedly a good thing. But for Hyojin, who hopes to stimulate Sasuke to awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan in this Chunin exam and promote Naruto and Nine Tails to communicate with each other, a Chunin exam that is too harmonious is not a good thing. He needs this Chunin exam to be more intense and cruel. It is best to let the students who have just graduated from the ninja school see what is the real ninja world. However, the Chunin exam was about to begin, and there were no blind guys who took the initiative to jump out to cause trouble. So Hyojin had to take advantage of the opportunity of the Umbu to test him and make a decisive move. Since no one wanted to be the villain, he would have to do the technical work himself. Boom! At this moment, there was a sudden roar from outside the room, followed by a clamor. The sounds of fighting, cursing, and shouting rose and fell. Just as Shuizuki was about to get up and check, Xiang Lin on the side reported to Hyojin, "The ninjas of the Sound Village and the ninjas of the Grass Village are fighting outside." Shuizuki looked surprised. "Hey, how did you know?" Hyojin smiled. "Hee, this kind of atmosphere is like the Chunin exam." In the practice field, after an afternoon of special training, Sasuke and Sakura were so tired that they couldn't even straighten their backs. Even Naruto, who was full of energy, was panting, and his chest was moving up and down like a bellows. Seeing this, Kakashi said, "Okay, today's special training is over. Everyone go back and rest." "Phew, it's finally over." Sakura tilted her head and let out a long sigh of relief. At this time, Kakashi said again, "Sasuke, stay." After Sakura pulled Naruto, who complained about Kakashi's favoritism, away, Kakashi said to Sasuke, "You should have noticed this morning, right? Well, the other party is a master who uses lightning release, and he also mastered the lightning release stimulation method similar to Sensei's." Thinking of the masked mist ninja in the morning, Sasuke's face became gloomy. Ever since he got the title of first in the same batch, he's been in a state of being flattered and sought after. Now, he was suddenly slapped in the face by an unknown Miss Genin. This naturally made him unable to tolerate it. Kakashi said solemnly, "Don't underestimate the enemy. That guy named Kirin is definitely not an ordinary Genin. If you meet him during the exam, it is best to avoid him." "What?" Sasuke furrowed his brows. Kakashi immediately explained, "Trust my judgment, that guy is not simple." "Kakashi, sensei, do you have any misunderstanding about our Uchiha?" After a pause, Sasuke said coldly, "This time, whether it is Dedale Kimimaro or that guy named Kirin, I will not let any of them go." Kakashi shook his head and sighed. Sasuke's current hardware strength is indeed not weak, but he still lacks some actual combat experience. In the face of a real master with rich combat experience, it is likely that he will suffer a big loss. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed, and the Chunin exam officially began. In these 2 days, because Hyojin openly provoked the my ninjas, the smell of gunpowder between the ninjas of the various villages suddenly became a lot stronger, and the probing between each other gradually escalated, and finally evolved into a fierce battle. The most noisy one was the scuffle between the sound ninjas and the grass ninjas, as well as the gamble between the rock ninjas and the cloud ninjas, and finally, it even reached the 5 Kage. At the same time, all kinds of gossip and all kinds of bizarre rumors also spread into my village. And as these true and false news continued to spread and ferment, the odds in the casino also fluctuated up and down. The biggest change was undoubtedly the Mist Village represented by Hyojin, because he defeated 2 Konoha Umbu in an instant. And facing the siege of Konoha's genin, he didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. So the Kiri has become one of the hottest candidates for the Chunin exam, and is almost as strong as the Rock Village with Dead Ale. On the way to the first exam, Hyojin was like a real villain, and along the way, he received many hostile eyes from the my ninjas. But he was calm, and in order to achieve his goal, this is not a problem. The location of the first exam is the ninja school. The content of the exam is similar to the Chunin exam in the original world. It is also a written exam to test the ninja's ability to observe and collect information. There are a total of 4 examination rooms, and each room has 48 candidates. Hyojin's team was assigned to the first examination room, and he sat in his seat, not worried at all. Xiang Lin on the side looked around, and then nervously asked Hyojin, "Captain, is the paper difficult?" Hyojin shook his head and said with a smile, "I am not specifically responsible for drafting the paper. How would I know whether it is difficult or not? But you don't have to worry, I'm here." Hyojin didn't put this written exam in his eyes at all. He didn't believe that the Chunin exam paper can stump him. Naruto. Chapter 949. The Effect of Chameleon Plant. Staring at the first question on the test paper, Hyojin frowned slightly. As a ninja who is proficient in the production and use of poisons, he has some understanding of the vast majority of poisonous plants and medicinal herbs in the shinobi world, and even if he is not familiar with them, he has at least heard of their names. However, he had no recollection of the black spotted chameleon grass. It's definitely not an ordinary poisonous plant or herb. Could it be some kind of plant with special functions, such as repelling insects, making incense, or feeding? After thinking for a while, Hyojin shook his head with a smile and moved his eyes to the next question. There were countless strange plants and animals in the ninja world. Even the most knowledgeable person wouldn't dare to say that he knew all of them, not to mention the existence of mysterious places like the 3 Holy Lands. Therefore, it was normal for Hyojin to not be able to answer this question. The second question was a complicated ninja tool throwing calculation question. The target was behind a big tree, which was a blind spot. The ninja needed to collide with each other in the air to change their flight trajectory to hit the target. This was not a problem for many ninjas who were proficient in ninja tool throwing, and it was even easier for Hyojin, who had Kekkei Genkai Ninja. The trouble was that the test paper had to use a neat formula to calculate the numbers, and the whole process of the calculation had to be written down. But the problem was that Hyojin had long forgotten this kind of numerical formula. If he was given some supplementary information, he would be able to easily pick it up after all these years of doing scientific research. Even if he was given a suitable formula, he would be able to solve it. However, he didn't have anything at hand, so he couldn't complete a neat formula calculation in a short time. Who the hell came up with this question? Do genin need to take this test? After cursing, Hyojin looked at the third question. At this time, his face was a little gloomy. The third question was about Jinjutsu, and Hyojin directly passed it. The fourth question was a very rare and complicated weather question. This kind of special weather, Hyojin had seen this kind of special weather in the Land of Thunder, but only once. And the question was about this special weather. How would it affect the ninja's various ninjutsu? Hyojin, who was so angry that he started laughing, threw his pen on the floor. At this time, several examiners around him cast their eyes on Hyojin, and their eyes were very unfriendly. Obviously, The previous incident of Hyojin provoking my ninjas has spread in my. Xianglin also looked at Kuroto in surprise, and her eyes were full of doubt. At this moment, she was still waiting for the Hokage to pass her the answers to the exam. But Kuroto was the Hokage himself. I have already instructed the proctors to take care of Rock Village's Dead Ale, Cloud Village's Druid, and Mist Village's Kirin. As long as they give the slightest clue, we can eliminate them in the first round. Kakashi sighed. I hope this arrangement will have some effect. If Dead Ale, Druid, and Kirin can be eliminated in the first written test, then it would be a good thing for all Konoha's genin who are obviously not genin. In the examination room, while identifying and copying, Hyojin quickly completed the exam paper and smiled. How can the great Naruto fall in a mere Chunin exam? After completing all the questions, he didn't do anything extra. Although Xianglin was sitting quite far away, she has the Rinnegan, so this distance is like under her eyelids and her eyes, so just as Kuroto finished writing, she also answered most of the questions. Only Mizukage, who was sitting on the other side, scratched his ears and cheeks, fidgeting. Because at the beginning of the first exam, everyone was told that if only one person in the three-person team failed to pass, the whole team would be eliminated. So, looking at the test paper that was like a heavenly book, he was very worried that if he caused Kirin to be eliminated and caused Sharkskin to lose in the casino, he was afraid that he would be killed by Kirin himself. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 950. Just when Shuei was at a loss, a voice suddenly passed into his heart, making him suddenly shocked, and his body trembled unconsciously. In an instant, the eyes of the examiners around him focused on Shuei. Hyojin, Xianglin, and Shuei in the first examination room are the key targets of the examiners. Because the advisory elder group promised the examiners of the first examination room before the exam that as long as they can catch evidence of Hyojin, Xianglin, and Shuei cheating and eliminate the three of them in the written test, all the examiners in the first examination room will be considered to have completed an S-class task. Not only will they receive an S-class task reward, but this task will also be recorded in their resume, which will also help them in their future promotion. Therefore, although the examiners seem to be monitoring all the examinees on the surface, in fact, more than half of their attention is on Hyojin, Xianglin, and Shuei. After smiling at the examiners, Shuei sat down in a well-behaved manner. But in his heart, there was a storm. The voice that just passed into his heart was not a bystander, but the voice of Xianglin that he has been dealing with for the past few days, and from the actions of the examiners just now, it is obvious that the examiners and examinees in the examination room can't hear that voice. What the hell, did I just have an auditory hallucination? Shuei was surprised and suspicious. Suddenly, Xianglin's voice sounded again in his heart. Shuei, listen carefully, I'm going to start reading the answers. This time, Shuei's pupils shrank when he heard it clearly, and he subconsciously wanted to look at Xianglin, but considering the examiners around him who are monitoring him, he suppressed this impulse. At this time, Xianglin began to pass the exam answers to him. Shuei copied the answers that Xianglin passed him while thinking in his heart, what kind of ninjutsu is this? What Xianglin is using is not any of the ninjutsu known to the shinobi world, but a new ability created by the fusion of her own eye of Kagura and Rinnegan. As long as she maintains a state of complete focus, she could directly transmit a silent message to a specific target at close range through the eye of Kagura. And this kind of information transmission is impossible to be detected by ordinary perceptual ninjutsu. Almost at the same time, all kinds of cheating methods were being carried out in the 4 examination halls. Some silently used pupillary jutsu, some quietly cast jinjutsu, some used ninja tools, puppets, and some even targeted the examiner. For a time, all kinds of pupil techniques, jinjutsu, ninja tools, and puppets appeared one after another in the examination room. In examination room number 4, looking at the examination paper in front of him, Naruto was completely dumbfounded. At this moment, Hinata, who was sitting on his left, and Sakura, who was sitting on his right, pushed the test papers towards him at the same time, deliberately exposing the test papers to him. Unlike the others, Sakura was a true straight-A student. So many of the questions on the test paper were answered by her own ability. She provided the answers to Naruto because she was afraid that Naruto would drag her and Sasuke down. Hinata's grades were also not bad. Plus, with Kurenai's help, she knew in advance that this exam was about cheating. So she found the examiner in the examination room early and copied the answers smoothly. As for providing the answers to Naruto, who was not in the same team, she just wanted to help Naruto. And when he found that Hinata and Sakura exposed the test papers to him at the same time, Naruto was stunned for a moment, but then he was overjoyed. At this moment, an examiner suddenly pointed to a grass ninja in the examination room and said, "You, stand up." The grass ninja, who was pointed at, immediately stiffened, and cold sweat flowed down his back. Several examiners surrounded the grass ninja and found a small ball of paper from the body of the grass ninja and said coldly, "According to the rules of the exam, the cheaters will be eliminated. You and your teammates should leave the examination room as soon as possible." The grass ninja and his two teammates who were caught had to leave the examination room dejectedly. The appearance of the first eliminated person made the other examinees in the examination room more nervous. Naruto, who was going to sneak a glance at Hinata or Sakura's test papers, also hesitated. He was afraid that he would be eliminated, but he was even more afraid that he would implicate Hinata and Sakura. At this point, the examinees of each village also realized that they could not answer these questions without cheating. However, not everyone possessed brilliant cheating techniques. As time passed, those examinees who did not have the confidence to cheat perfectly could only choose to take the risk out of desperation. As a result, more and more examinees were eliminated by the examiners. Seeing team after team of examinees left the examination room because they were found cheating, Naruto was even more confused. Sasuke and Sakura, who had completed most of the questions, were even more anxious than Naruto. If Naruto could not answer the questions smoothly, then the three of them would be eliminated in the first round of the written exam, just like those ninjas who left the examination room before. Compared with other examinees, Shuizuki could not help but secretly rejoice. At this time, there were originally 48 examinees in the number 1 examination room, but only 24 examinees were left. Half of the examinees had been eliminated, and among the remaining half, there were still many who had not completed the questions but did not dare to act rashly. Hyojin was also observing the situation in the examination room. From the footsteps in the corridor, it was obvious that the situation in the other examination rooms was similar to the number 1 examination room, and a large number of examinees were also eliminated in the written exam. Among all the eliminated examinees, Mai, who had the largest number of participants in the Chunin exam, was eliminated less. Kuroto chuckled inwardly. They still have a way. In the participants of the Chunin exam, Mai was in a passive position and could not play any tricks, but the advisory elders of the village obviously would not suffer this loss for nothing. Since there was no room for maneuver in the reference personnel, he would do it in the exam process. Actually, there was no need to go too far. As long as he gave a little reminder to the Mai examinees before the exam, then let the Mai examinees and the support in the exam seats, he would be able to easily eliminate the examinees from the other ninja villages. However, the village is still taking it for granted. It's unrealistic to use this method to eliminate the true powerhouses. After observing for a while, Hyojin retracted his gaze. This first round of the written exam was indeed a screening, but the majority of the people it screened were actually the genin who were really here to participate in the Chunin exam, and the rest were almost all the elites of the various ninja villages, as well as people like Hyojin, Orochimaru, and other people with ulterior motives. For example, in Hyojin's number 1 examination room, Orochimaru, who was pretending to be a grass ninja, had a leisurely expression on his face, and there was no sign of anxiety at all. The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who tipped yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 9:51. In the end, Naruto did not choose to plagiarize, and the entire test paper was blank. When Ibixi, the chief examiner, passed by Naruto and saw the empty test paper, he was stunned for a moment before he furrowed his brows. Naruto and Sasuke were both candidates that the village paid close attention to. Before the exam, the advisory elders had hinted to the examiners many times to ensure that Naruto and Sasuke passed the first round of the exam smoothly. However, Naruto did not answer a single question. According to the rules, not only would Naruto be eliminated, but even Sasuke and Sakura, who were in the same team as Naruto, would also be implicated and eliminated. No, I must let him pass the exam. At the thought of this, Ibixi gently knocked on Naruto's table and said with a stern face, "Don't daydream. Pay attention to the time. The exam is about to end." After saying that, he did not linger around Naruto and went straight to the other areas of the exam hall. He even gave the examiners around him a look. After receiving Ibixi's signal, the examiners naturally shifted their gazes away, leaving an empty space for Naruto to cheat. Sasuke instantly noticed this detail. His gaze turned cold, and he gave Sakura, who was next to Naruto, a look. Sakura, who understood, immediately pushed her test paper towards Naruto. However, Naruto, who had just been warned by Ibixi, did not dare to cheat at all. If he was the only one who had to bear the consequences, he would naturally be fearless. However, if he was caught cheating, Sasuke and Sakura would be implicated, and they would be chased out of the exam hall in front of everyone. Such a consequence made it difficult for him to make up his mind. Time passed little by little. When Ibixi patrolled to Naruto's side again, he was surprised to find that the test paper on Naruto's table was still blank. He immediately said angrily, "Is this kid deliberately going against me?" Ring, ring, ring. Before Ibiki could think about it, the bell that signaled the end of the exam rang. Oh no! Instantly, this thought appeared in Naruto and Ibixi's minds at the same time. After standing there for a while, Ibixi suddenly had an idea and walked to the podium. Soon, the first round of the exam ended. Just like in the original timeline, Ibixi added a question at the last minute. Then, citing courage and conviction, he announced that all the remaining examinees in the exam hall had passed. Naruto was naturally overjoyed, and Sasuke also heaved a long sigh of relief. After that, all the examinees who passed the first round gathered in a large classroom. After taking a seat, Suijin looked around the room. There were originally nearly 200 examinees, but now there were only 72 people left. Among them, Rock Village and Cloud Village had 3 teams left, each with 9 people. Sancrypsis only had 2 teams with 6 people. Sound Village's 2 teams had passed. Grass Village only had Orochimaru's team with 3 people, and Takaganobu Village only had Fu's team with 3 people. Although Mai's examinees were also eliminated, there were still 11 teams left, which was close to half of all the examinees. In the classroom, the examinees who passed the first round of the exam were looking at each other. After the first round of screening, the remaining examinees could be said to be elites, so the atmosphere in the classroom was inexplicably tense. Sasuke coldly looked at Kimimaro, Deidara, and Hyojin, who were sitting not far away, and said, "This kind of simple exam is really not difficult for them, but this is also good. I can beat them one by one in a fair and square way." Naruto stroked his chest and said, "That exam was really scary." Sakura's face was also full of joy. Being in the same team as Naruto was really a test of the heart. At this time, Shikamaru came over and sat next to them, saying, "Sasuke, the second exam is about to start. We should make a good strategy." Sakura was puzzled and asked, "Strategy?" Shikamaru pointed at Rock Village's Deidara, Heitu, Cloud Village's Druid, as well as the mass Hyojin and Xianglin, and said, "These guys aren't real genin, so we should make use of our advantage in numbers and unite." Xiaoling nodded. "That's right. Our batch of students should definitely take action." Naruto looked around and found that his batch was looking at him. Obviously, They had reached a consensus to advance and retreat together in the second exam. Seeing that Sakura had agreed and Naruto did not object, Shikamaru continued. The second exam will be... Without waiting for Shikamaru to finish speaking, Sasuke snorted coldly. Humph, boring. Shikamaru was stunned for a moment. Sasuke, what do you mean? Sasuke's mouth rose, and he said with a slight smile, I have no interest in participating in the boring tricks of you children. The second exam is my hunting ground. Sakura said with some embarrassment. Sasuke, these opponents are not genin at all. We will be at a disadvantage if we fight them head-on. It's better to join forces with everyone. Sasuke glanced at Sakura and said lightly, It's up to you. In any case, you will only be a burden if you follow me. Naruto said unhappily, Sasuke, how can you say that about Sakura? Sasuke suddenly looked at Naruto and said, Do you know what this exam means to me? Naruto was speechless for a moment. Sasuke's gaze swept past Naruto, Hyojin, Kimimaro, and finally locked on a rock village's dead ale. He said word by word, Father's revenge, the family's glory, they are all on my shoulders. How can I hide in the crowd? I am Uchiha. The family's glory does not allow me to retreat. Sakura looked at Sasuke in a daze, her eyes filled with worship. Naruto said loudly, Don't worry, Sasuke, we are friends. I will definitely support you. Looking at Sasuke's resolute face, Shikamaru sighed and then shook his head and left. Sometimes, it was difficult to communicate with Uchiha. At this time, Asuma walked into the classroom and announced, I am the examiner of the second exam. Now, I will announce the rules of the second exam to you. Before that, you need to sign a life and death contract because people will die in the second exam. As soon as Asuma's voice fell, several examiners walked into the classroom with a large pile of life and death contracts and distributed them to the candidates. Although they had already expected this, after seeing the life and death contract in their hands, many of the candidates still showed nervous expressions. After all, it has been more than 10 years since the Third Shinobi World War. Most of the candidates present have not experienced a real shinobi war, nor have they experienced the test of life and death. Here's the first one, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. The recommendation votes are refreshed every day, and it would be a waste not to vote. It's just a small effort. Please support me. Chapter 952. After all the candidates signed the life and death agreement, Asuma began to introduce the rules of the second exam. Similar to the original time and space, the location of the second exam is in the Death Forest on the edge of the village. The 24 teams that pass the first exam will randomly get one of the 12 scrolls of heaven and 12 scrolls of earth before entering the Death Forest. Only by defeating the other teams in the Death Forest, collecting a pair of scrolls of heaven and earth, and successfully reaching the Sentry Tower located in the center of the Death Forest, will they be considered to have passed the second exam. Is it to compete for the scrolls? It sounds very simple. There are only 12 scrolls of heaven and 12 scrolls of earth. Even in the most ideal situation, only 12 pairs of scrolls of heaven and earth can be collected. The elimination rate of this exam is at least 50%. 50%? Humph! No one will complain about having more scrolls in their hands. If it were me, even if I have already collected a pair of scrolls of heaven and earth, I would still hunt other teams and eliminate as many competitors as possible. Therefore, the elimination rate of this exam is at least 70%. TSK. I'm starting to look forward to it. Listening to Asuma's introduction, the candidates in the classroom suddenly talked about it. Some of the shrewd candidates even estimated the approximate elimination rate of this exam. Asuma smiled. Your analysis is correct. At most 12 teams will advance in this exam, so at least half of you will be eliminated. The candidates who are observing each other are both nervous and excited. For most of the examinees present, the first round of the written test was too boring. Only a real fight could show the true strength of a ninja. At this time, a Rock Village candidate raised his hand and asked, Examiner, are there any restrictions on fighting in the exam? Asma immediately explained. Meaningless killing is strictly prohibited in the exam, and it is strictly prohibited to chase and kill candidates who voluntarily give up. In addition, there are no restrictions on fighting. Everyone can use all means. A grass ninja suddenly frowned. There are so many candidates in my village. If there are no rules and restrictions, if they act together, wouldn't it be very unfair to us ninjas from other villages? Asma chuckled. You can also find allies. Choosing suitable targets to attack and suitable allies is also one of the tests of this exam. The grass ninja was speechless and sat back down. He knew very well that although Asma spoke in a dignified manner, in reality, the rules of this examination favored Mai. This was an indisputable fact, because there are no obstacles in the alliance between the ninjas of the same village. It was much more difficult for teams from different villages to form an alliance. After all, trust was a very precious luxury for ninjas. Asma continued. In the Forest of Death, there are countless secret cameras. Therefore, your every move during the exam will be seen by the 5 shadows in the monitoring room. In addition, there is a medical station in each of the north, south, east, and west regions of the forest. Fighting is strictly prohibited in the medical station. If any of you enter the medical station of your own accord, you will be protected, but at the same time, you will forfeit and lose the right to take the test. After introducing the rules of the exam, Asma no longer talked nonsense and directly led the candidates to the Forest of Death. On the way to the Forest of Death, the examinees had already begun to secretly choose the most suitable target to attack. According to the rules of the exam, if one was lucky enough, as long as they attacked a small team and happened to get the scroll that they were missing, they could avoid fighting along the way and head straight to the outpost in the center to advance. Outside the Forest of Death, 3 generations of Tsuchikage, 4 generations of Laying, 4 generations of Kazakage, 4 generations of Mizukage, and several elders of Kusanagi and Takanaji village, accompanied by Itachi who was disguised as Hyojin, along with several of Mai's consultant elders, came to the monitoring room that was full of monitors. According to the scenes on the monitors, it was clear that the entire Forest of Death was under strict surveillance. Coupled with a large number of elite Umbu members stationed in the central outpost tower and the medical stations in the east, south, west, and west, once there was a change in the Forest of Death, a large number of reinforcements could arrive in an instant. Swish, swish, swish. At the same time, with the sound of the wind breaking, a group of Jonin such as Kakashi, Richa, Sasuke, Guy, Mute, Red Bean, Gale, Quian, and other Jonin landed at the entrance of the Forest of Death. This temporary team, composed of Jonin, had a total of 4 teams and 16 people. They will also enter the Forest of Death to act as invigilators and ensure that the exam is carried out smoothly. After all, in addition to the elites of each village, there are also 2 Jinchuriki with sensitive identities participating in the Chunin exam, so it's not too much to pay attention to them. Just as Kakashi assigned tasks to the Jonin, there was another sound of wind breaking. Immediately afterward, Jishuei, as the captain of the police force, led 3 Uchiha elites to appear in front of everyone. Both sides nodded tacitly, and then a total of 5 teams, 20 Jonin, entered the Forest of Death before the candidates entered the field. Not long after, the candidates, led by Asma and the other examiners, arrived at the Forest of Death. After drawing their respective scrolls one by one, the 24 teams were led by the examiners to different entrances. These 24 entrances, like the numbers on a clock, were evenly distributed in the outer circle of the Forest of Death. Each team can decide how to act according to their strategy, and they don't have to worry about encountering enemies as soon as they step into the Forest of Death. Swish, 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 soon, with a series of signal flares exploding in the air, the 24 teams rushed into the Forest of Death at the same time. While rushing, Hyojin asked Xiang Lin, "Which direction is Cloud Village's Darui?" Xiang Lin sensed for a while and then pointed to the right. "Go!" Suijin didn't speak any nonsense. His figure flashed and rushed towards Druid's direction. The reason why he chose Darui first was that he needed to fight with Darui to perfect the development of the Thunder Release clone Mist Release Kekii. On Naruto's side, after entering the familiar Forest of Death, Naruto asked, "What do we do now?" Sakura hurriedly said to Sasuke, "Sasuke, I have calculated that Rock Village's dead ale is likely to be on our left. If we regard our entrance as the 7 o'clock direction on the clock, then Rock Village's dead ale is likely to be at the 11 o'clock direction." When they were led away by the examiners, Sakura paid attention to the direction of Dedale's team and calculated the most likely position of Dedale's team. Sasuke's expression sank, and he directly rushed to the left with an overbearing aura. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, I would like to thank the students who tipped me yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 953. It was noon, and the sun was shining brightly, but the luxuriant treetops almost blocked all of the sunlight above them. Only a bit of mottled light and shadows were missed, causing the Forest of Death's interior to seem exceptionally dark, and it gave off a creepy and terrifying feeling. While shuttling through the forest, Shikamaru vigilantly observed the surroundings while thinking. Before the start of the second exam, he had already discussed with his peers. Except for Naruto's and Sasuke's teams, the other teams had agreed to join hands. Therefore, his top priority at the moment was not to look for prey, but to meet up with his peers as soon as possible. Once the 12 students met up, the second exam would be stable. This was because among the 12 people, there were not only body technique experts like Ningxi and Xiaoli, but also Zin, who was proficient in sealing techniques, Yako, who was proficient in illusion techniques, and Jina, who had strong detection and tracking abilities, and Sakui, who had the ability to fly. With such a lineup, even if they encountered Rock Village's dead ale, they might still be able to fight. In fact, according to Shikamaru's original plan, if the 15 people who graduated in the same year acted together, it was not impossible for them to sweep the second exam. It must be known that Sasuke, Naruto, and Ningxi were not only very strong, but they also each had a ridiculously strong giant psychic beast. If the three of them worked together, passing the second exam would not be a problem at all. Sigh. At the thought of this, Shikamaru could not help but sigh. Ino, who was next to him, said with some worry, "I don't know why, but I always feel that the people from the Sound Village look at Sasuke with strange eyes." "Shikamaru, let's go and help Sasuke and the others?" Because he had been secretly paying attention to Sasuke, Ino keenly discovered that the ninjas from the Sound Village seemed to have some kind of inexplicable hostility towards Sasuke. Dingxi also echoed, "Yeah, it's really worrying if the three of them act alone." Shikamaru nodded and immediately emphasized, "But we have to meet up with the other teams first, and then go find them. Otherwise, our own safety can't be guaranteed." Ino and Tensei nodded in unison. Boom! At this moment, a deafening roar came from afar. Immediately after, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Shikamaru and the other two looked in the direction of the rumbling sound in shock. Two figures surrounded by lightning were fighting fiercely on the battlefield, which was filled with rumbling sounds. The two figures were as fast as lightning. Even the whistling sounds they made as they tore through the air could not keep up with their speed. In the fierce battle, the thick and sturdy trees that required several people to wrap their arms around were like withered branches and withered leaves in the aftermath of their battle, destroyed row by row. The lightning-released ninjutsu they used were like sharp claws, or like a wantonly electric whip, wreaking havoc in the forest, whether it was a tree, a boulder, or a quagmire. It would make a burst of crackling sound. The fire and smoke produced by the electric shocks continued to spread, and the entire battlefield was gradually filled with an unpleasant burnt smell. Two monsters, looking at the chaotic battlefield not far away. Shuiyue's face was full of horror. Without a doubt, the people who were fighting were not bystanders, but Hyojin, who was controlling the lightning release clone, and the future Cloud Village's 5th generation Lei Ying, the mist-release Kekii Genkai Darui. Shuiyue thought that with the strength of Kirin, it should not be a problem to deal with a few genin candidates of Cloud Village. So, he happily followed Kirin to find Cloud Village's druid team. As a result, when he fought with them, he discovered that the black man who always had a lazy appearance was actually so strong. The genin of the Mist Village is so strong. Like Shueiyue, Shi, and Samyi, who were in the same team as Darui, were also surprised at the moment. Through the previous storm at the entrance of the ninja school, the candidates knew that the strength of Kirin was not weak. He is one of the new generation of the 7 swordsmen of the Mist Village, and his character is very arrogant. Not only did he dare to openly provoke the host, Mai, but he also bet his sharkskin in the casino before the beginning of the exam. But even so, they did not expect that Kirin would be so strong. It must be known that the current Cloud Village, Dri, who has mastered the lightning release stimulation technique and has the mist release Kekiai Genkai, is the #1 expert at Cloud Village besides the 4 generations Leiying. The reason why Leiying sent Dri to participate in this Chunin exam is to let Dri sweep the genin of other villages and boost the morale of the Cloud Village. Therefore, in the eyes of Shi and Samyi, there is only one real enemy in this exam, and that is Rock Village's Dead Ale. As for the others, they don't put them in their eyes at all. Samyi asked nervously, Shi, who has the upper hand now? As a perceptive ninja, she shook his head with a dignified face. It's still hard to say. The chakra of both sides has not weakened significantly, and the battle is still in a stalemate. Clang. Samyi pulled out the short sword from his waist and looked at Xianglin and Shueiyue, who were also watching the battle, and said, It seems that this Mist team is more troublesome than we thought. Let's first deal with the other 2 small fries, and then help Dri deal with Kirin. She immediately nodded. Looking at the blonde and tall Samyi looking at her, Shueiyue didn't have time to appreciate the beauty and nervously said to Xianglin, Not good. They're going to attack. Xianglin was also a little nervous. Swish! At this time, Samyi launched the body flicker technique and directly waved the short sword towards Xianglin, while she quickly made a hand seal and launched the thunder release ninjutsu to attack Shueiyue. Perceiving Sammy's intention, almost at the same time, when Samyi launched the body flicker technique, Xianglin jumped and hit on the branch of another big tree. Thunder release again? Shueiyue's face was bitter, as she didn't dare to resist, and directly dodged the opponent's thunder release ninjutsu and fled towards the dark forest. She didn't hesitate and immediately chased after her, as Shueiyue and she fled far away. Only Samyi and Xianglin were left in the field. Holding the short sword in his hand horizontally, Samyi looked at Xianglin and said, If I didn't guess wrong, you should be the perceptive ninja in your team, right? Being selected to participate in this Chunin exam, I think you should have some ability, but unfortunately, looking for us was the biggest mistake you made. Feeling the strong fighting spirit of Samyi, Xianglin became even more nervous. Let me do it. At this moment, a voice came into Xianglin's mind. First update, a little late, very sorry. Chapter 954. This voice belonged to none other than Gaara, who was temporarily pulled out of his spiritual body by Hyojin with the help of the giant Tenseigan's power. He was now residing in the Type 3 biological armor that Ziyuan was wearing. Considering that strengthening Gaara's strength could also effectively delay the resurrection of Jubi, Hyojin used this alternative method to bring Gaara along. Of course, this was something that Hyojin could only barely do after he had the giant Tenseigan. Because his soul descending technique could only be used by himself, only with the help of the giant Tenseigan's power could he completely and safely extract Gaara's spiritual body. Compared to Xianglin, who had no actual combat experience, Gaara, who had been trained by the Sancrypsis as a human pillar since childhood and had even suffered many assassinations, was much stronger in dealing with enemies. Therefore, after sensing Xianglin's nervousness, Gaara immediately took over the Type 3 biological armor that Xianglin was wearing and used the Type 3 biological armor to connect with Xianglin's chakra. With Xianglin's permission, he temporarily took over Xianglin's body in a way similar to controlling a puppet. Whoosh! After completing the takeover of the body, Gaara immediately launched an attack. Without using any ninja tools, he directly waved his fist and attacked Sammy, who was opposite him. Looking at his opponent's somewhat awkward movements, the corner of Sammy's mouth twitched. While dodging, she said sarcastically, "What's wrong? Are you so nervous that your movements are out of shape? Or are you afraid?" Boom! Before Sammy could finish her words, the smile on her face froze. Because she found that the big tree behind her just now was directly blown away by her opponent's punch with a loud bang. It even smashed several big trees in a row. Sammy's blue eyes widened, and her face was filled with disbelief. The big tree behind her just now had a canopy that covered the sky. The diameter of the trunk was at least 3 to 4 meters. It was a real giant tree. Even if the 4 generations late-in came, it would be difficult to blow it away without activating the Thunder Release Chakra mode. But the thin and ordinary mist genin in front of him was able to send the entire tree flying with a casual punch. In an instant, Sammy's heart sank. Damn it! Is this guy also a monster? Ailer, who had sent the giant tree flying with a single punch, was also slightly surprised. He has always known that the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan is very excellent, and in terms of physique, it is comparable to that of the leader of the Akatsuki Nagato of the Uzumaki clan. This is also the reason why Kuroda took Xiang Lin in and transplanted the precious Rinnegan to her. However, he did not expect Xiang Lin's strong physique, coupled with the Form 3 biological armor's strength amplification, to be able to unleash such a ridiculous amount of power. In a monitoring room where the 5 shadows were located, the surveillance room was silent as they watched the trees topple over and the dazzling lightning flashes on the screen. At this moment, whether it was the 5 shadows, the elders of the Kusanagi village, or the staff controlling the monitors, all of them were focused on the battle between Hyojin and Druid. However, the secret cameras on the battlefield could not capture the battle at this speed. Therefore, what was fed back to the monitor was only ghostly shadows, intermittent flashes of lightning, pervading smoke, spreading fires, and overturned trees. Because of the aftermath of the battle, one secret camera after another was destroyed in the battle. In just a moment, most of the screens that were monitoring the battle lost their pictures one after another, turning into a vast expanse of white snowflakes. They really are 2 excellent genin, Tsunade teased in a cold tone. Not to mention Tsunade, even Naruto of the 3 generations, who had always been expressionless, had a dark face. Although he was not the scene, he could feel the intensity of the battle just from the incomplete surveillance screen. In this kind of battle that almost destroyed the terrain, not to mention genin, even a jonin would find it difficult to do so. Lei Ying of the 4 generations showed a trace of embarrassment on his face, but he was more surprised. He did not expect that the declining Mist Village would have such a strong master. Yagura of the 4 generations was much calmer, but Mei, who was standing next to him, was puzzled because she couldn't think of anyone in the village who could match the identity of Kirin. In the Forest of Death, compared to the 5 shadows who were far away from the monitor, Kakashi and other Jonin invigilators who were in the Forest of Death were undoubtedly more affected by the battle in the distance. Looking at the dazzling thunder and lightning in the distance, as well as the flocks of birds and beasts fleeing in panic, Mute asked in a daze, if I remember correctly, this should be the Chunin exam, right? Asma, who met with everyone, was speechless. Even in the 3rd Shinobi World War, I have only seen a few battles of this level. Richa, who had activated the Byakugan, had a solemn expression on his face. The chakra that erupted from both sides is very strong. It has long surpassed the level of ordinary jonin. This is not a genin at all. After listening to Richa's words, all the jonins frowned, and Kakashi slightly narrowed his eyes. Although he had overestimated the strength of these candidates sent by other villages as much as possible, but after the real fight, Kakashi found that he still underestimated them. Opponents of this level, not to mention the students who just graduated from the shinobi school, Even the Jonin present at the scene may not have the confidence to win one-on-one. In the sky, sitting on the clay bird, Kuroto looked down with a surprised expression and said, "Wow, I didn't expect there to be such a large primeval forest on the edge of my village." Dead Ale, who was sitting cross-legged, took out a one-eye auxiliary device from the ninja bag around his waist and put on his left eye. Since the last time he was almost easily subdued by the Jinjutsu of Amatsukumi's Homusubi, he has been concentrating on training his left eye to resist the Jinjutsu of the Manjikyu Sharingan. And after a period of special training with his outstanding talent, he trained his left eye to have an extremely strong insight ability, as well as the ability to resist illusions. If he wore an auxiliary device, his left eye would even be comparable to the eye of a pupillary ninja. After watching for a while, Kuroto asked curiously, "What should we do now?" On the side, Akatsuki took out a scroll of the earth and said, "We should now hunt the team with the scroll of heaven and collect a pair of scrolls of heaven and earth to pass the exam." Dead Ale smiled and said, "That's boring." Rumble. As soon as his voice fell, a thunderous roar came from the distance. Dead Ale immediately looked in the direction of the sound and saw a strong thunder-release chakra erupting at the other end of the forest, almost opposite the entrance where he was. The huge thunder and high temperature even changed the weather, making the originally clear sky gloomy. Thunder release expert, after a pause, Dead Ale ordered the clay bird to fly over there while grinning and saying, "It's finally becoming a bit interesting. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts yesterday. Thank you, everyone." Chapter 955. Looking at the lightning that soared into the sky in the distance, Kuroto, who was sitting on the clay bird, showed a trace of fear and asked, "The one fighting over there should be Cloud Village's druid, right?" "Yeah." Dead Ale nodded. Among all the candidates who participated in the Chunin exam this time, the only one who could display such a powerful lightning release ninjutsu is Cloud Village's druid, so the one fighting over there is most likely druid. Dead Ale was now full of curiosity. What kind of person could force druid into such a situation? Compared to Dead Ale's excitement, feeling the violent thunder release chakra dissipating in the air, Kuroto said hesitantly, Do we really have to go there?" Thunder Release's restraint on Earth release was very significant. In the Third Shinobi World War, the three generations Laying once fought against tens of thousands of Rock Village's ninja army by himself. He fought for 3 days and 3 nights before dying of exhaustion. Therefore, as an Earth ninja of Rock Village, Kuroto was instinctively disgusted and afraid of any powerful Thunder Release ninja. Dead Ale curled his lips indifferently. "If you don't want to go, then I'll leave you two here and go by myself." "You?" Staring fiercely at Dead Ale, Kuroto said, "You promised Grandpa to take care of me. You can't go back on your word." "So troublesome," Dead Ale muttered in a low voice. Kuroto asked again, "By the way, haven't you always wanted to fight against a strong Sharingan? I remember that Uchiha's clansman is also participating in the Chunin exam. Why don't you go and find him?" Dead Ale replied casually, "That kid named Uchiha Sasuke doesn't even have a Manjikyu Sharingan. It's boring to find him." On the ground, Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura were galloping in the Death Forest. The Forest of Death, which had a complicated terrain, was not unfamiliar to them at all. This was because it was not their first time carrying out combat drills here, so they had some understanding of the environment and terrain. And the reason why they went straight for Dead Ale at the start of the exam was because in Sasuke's mind, his father's enmity was far more important than his personal grudges with Kimimaro, Kirin, and the others. Therefore, Sasuke decided to deal with Dead Ale first, find out the whereabouts of the pair of Manjikyu Sharingan that was taken away from his father, and then personally take them back for his father. But he had clearly underestimated Dead Ale's whims. Sakura's calculation of Dead Ale's position was indeed correct, but Dead Ale didn't move on foot like an ordinary examinee. Instead, he used the clay bird to fly high into the sky. Therefore, when the three of them rushed towards Dead Ale, he had already flown past them on the clay bird, Rumble. At this moment, a faint rumble came from afar. The battle has already begun. Looking at Okimaru and Onikato, Sasuke showed a disdainful smile, and immediately his figure flickered, facing them head-on. Naruto and Sakura didn't retreat and directly fought with Duo Yuya. Soon, the battlefield was divided into two parts. Sasuke and Akira and Onimaru were fighting, and the distance between them and Naruto and Sakura was gradually pulled apart. Aware of this, Naruto and Sakura shouted at Sasuke, telling Sasuke not to act alone. They wanted to follow Sasuke, but they were stopped by Duo Yuya. On a branch of a big tree not far away, Orochimaru, who was dressed as a grass ninja, crossed his arms and leaned against the tree trunk. His face was full of ridicule as he looked at the battlefield. The first chapter is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 956. Boom, boom, boom. Not far away came the sound of explosions, as well as the flickering flames, which showed that there was a fierce battle going on there. So Naruto and Sakura were very worried about Sasuke's safety. Worried about your companion? With a smile, Duo Yu also said, "Don't worry, under the siege of Kikuto and Onimaru, that kid named Uchiha Sasuke will definitely die miserably." Sakura immediately retorted, "Are you kidding me? Sasuke is our first in the same batch. How can he be defeated by you shinobi?" Naruto also echoed, "Sasuke is a ninja as powerful as me." At this time, Duo Yu also put the flute in his hand to his mouth and said with a smile, "You ignorant mind ninjas, you don't understand what real power is. Besieged by Kikuto and Onimaru, not to mention Genin like you. Even your my Jonin will definitely die." Naruto was shocked. "Your two strange companions with 6 arms and 2 heads, are they really that powerful? To tell you the truth, Uchiha Sasuke is already dead by the time this exam begins. The only difference is who kills him. That's right, Uchiha Sasuke." With that, Duo Yu also glanced at the battlefield not far away. Dying in the hands of Kikuto and Onimaru may not be too bad for him. If that person comes, he will only die more miserably. Sakura hurriedly asked, "That person? Is there someone else chasing Sasuke? Why? Why do you have to kill Sasuke?" Putting the flute to his lips, Duo Yu also smiled. "Since you care so much about Uchiha Sasuke, then I will fulfill your wish and send you to hell together." Then the melodious sound of a flute rang out in the forest. Listening to the sound of the flute, Naruto and Sakura immediately fell into a trance. Then, the surrounding scenery changed completely. The sky turned a horrifying blood red, and the two of them were tied up by their hands, unable to move. Illusion? Illusion? Sakura was startled. Before she could think of a way to break it, she realized that her body was slowly melting. She immediately screamed. Naruto, who was also trapped in the illusion, was also at a loss. At this moment, the blood-red sky in front of him, the ropes binding his body, and all the illusions created by the illusion were instantly torn apart by a force. Naruto was shocked when he noticed that his surroundings had returned to normal. Just as Naruto was about to counterattack, a voice came from the depths of his heart. "Don't be hasty. Big Fox." Naruto immediately reacted, knowing that it was Kyuubi in his body who helped him break the Jinjutsu, and instantly understood Kyuubi's meaning. He suppressed the impatience in his heart and pretended to be still trapped in the Jinjutsu. Seeing Naruto and Sakura raise their arms high as if they had lost consciousness, Duo Yu also stopped playing the flute, smiled and walked over, and said to herself, "Who will have a scroll?" Although advancing in the Chunin exam was not the main goal of the shinobi, Duo Yu enjoyed the sight of the elite genin of the other shinobi villages crying and begging for mercy in front of her. So after subduing Naruto and Sakura, she walked over, wanted to see if Naruto and Sakura had a mission scroll on them. Just as Duo Yu walked in front of Naruto and reached for the ninja bag on Naruto's waist, Naruto, who had quietly gotten rid of the illusion with the help of the Nine Tails, suddenly attacked and threw a punch at Duo Yu. Duo Yu was quite surprised, and her body instinctively leaned back, narrowly avoiding Naruto's punch. Under Orochimaru's command, she had experienced too many actual battles and seen too much deception. So in terms of combat experience, she far surpassed Naruto, who had just graduated from a ninja school. Watching Naruto's fist brush past the tip of her nose, the corners of Duo Yu's mouth curled up slightly, and a trace of sarcasm appeared on her face. However, before the sarcasm on her face could completely disappear, Naruto's fist extended a sharp claw made of orange-red chakra and fiercely grabbed at her. Swoosh, blood splattered everywhere. The sudden change made it impossible for Duo Yu to dodge, and she could only barely raise her arms to protect her chest. Under the attack, several bone-deep claw marks immediately appeared on her arms, which were protecting her torso. Suddenly retreating more than 10 meters, Duo Yu also looked at Naruto in surprise. What was that just now? Although it was only a fleeting appearance, the orange-red chakra just now had left a deep impression on her. For a short moment, she felt as if she was incomparably small in front of the other party. However, Naruto ignored Duo Yu and hurriedly removed the illusion for Sakura. Seeing that Naruto had ignored her, Duo Yu was instantly furious. No one can ignore me. After saying that, Duo Yu instantly unleashed the curse, directly bypassing the first form, and entered the second form of the curse, which was also very dangerous for her. On the other side of the battlefield, bang! With a kick, Sasuke sent Zuiyu flying. He sneered and said, "Want to kill me? You sure talk big. Is that all you've got?" Zuiyu, who only managed to stabilize his body after hitting a big tree, said with a gloomy face, "Damn it, I didn't expect this guy to be so strong." As expected of the target that Lord Orochimaru has set his eyes on. After the confrontation just now, he found that Sasuke was much better than him in terms of speed, insight, and moves. Therefore, he knew very well that he might not be able to kill Sasuke quickly by himself. So he moved his gaze up and glanced at the top of his head. At this moment, countless fist-sized spiders suddenly fell from the sky. These spiders' tails were connected to silk threads, and like a waterfall, they poured down on Sasuke, covering the sky and the sun. Thinking of this, he immediately turned his eyes to Onimaru and Onimaru, who were tightly tied to the big tree by the steel wires, and wanted to break the big tree with the longbow in his hand to help Onimaru and Onimaru get out. Swish! Just as Onimaru's golden arrow was about to leave the bow, a figure suddenly flashed behind him. Onimaru was shocked. Oh no, his real target is me. The moment he judged Sasuke's real intention, Onimaru instinctively cast his unique secret skill, Golden Sticky Armor, on his back. This golden sticky armor was a special substance secreted by Onimaru's sweat glands, which could turn into hard metal in an instant, forming a protective layer on Onimaru's skin like armor. Chi-Chi, just as Onimaru, who had cast the golden sticky armor, calmed down a little, a sharp noise like thousands of birds chirping sounded behind him. Then, he felt a pain in his abdomen. He quickly looked down and found that an arm flashing with lightning had avoided his heart and pierced his body from behind. How? How is this possible? Onimaru coughed up a mouthful of blood, and the curse on his body began to fade quickly. On the ground, bang bang, the angry Onimaru and Onimaru exerted their strength together. Under the enhancement of the second form of the curse, they suddenly broke the steel wires that bound them. After breaking free, Onimaru lost control of his emotions and shouted, "Damn it! Damn Uchiha Sasuke! Get out of here!" At this time, two black shadows fell from the canopy. One of them landed steadily, with one hand on his waist. It was Uchiha Sasuke. The other was Onimaru, who was instantly hit by Sasuke's Chidori. Onimaru fell to the ground awkwardly. The wound on his abdomen was bleeding, and he had fallen into a coma. Glancing at Onamaru on the ground, Sasuke said lightly, "Although I tried to avoid the vital parts, if you don't treat him in time, your companion won't live long. So put down the scroll, take your companion, and get out of here." Onamaru and Onamaru didn't seem to expect that Onamaru, who was very close to their strength, would be so easily defeated by Sasuke. Their faces were full of surprise. In the second form, we can compete with a Jonin if we join forces. How could we lose to a Genin like Uchiha Sasuke? Sasuke urged. Hey, do you want to see him die? After weighing the pros and cons, Onamaru took out an earth scroll from his storage bag and slowly walked toward Sasuke. Seeing that Onamaru took out an earth scroll, Sasuke's eyes lit up. Coincidentally, their team got a heaven scroll, so as long as they get the earth scroll in front of them, they won't have the pressure of collecting scrolls, and they can rush to the central tower to pass the exam at any time. And just when the two sides exchange the scrolls, Onamaru suddenly grabbed Sasuke's arm tightly and roared with a ferocious face. I don't care about his life or death. I just want you to die. At the moment when the two sides touched each other, Onamaru took advantage of the time when Sasuke relaxed his vigilance and launched Parasitic Demon Vanquishing Technique. This secret technique allows him to invade the enemy's body from the cellular level, parasitize the enemy, and finally kill the enemy from the inside of the body from the cell level. Sensing that Onamaru's cells were invading his body, Sasuke was shocked. Onamaru smiled and said, Uchiha, Sasuke, have a good taste of this despair. Realizing that if he did not come up with a countermeasure immediately, he might really die in Onamaru's hands, Sasuke focused his gaze and looked at Onamaru. The three Magatama in his scarlet eyes slowly spun. Meeting Sasuke's gaze, Onamaru smiled and said, No matter how hard you struggle, you can't change your fate of death. Just live well. Halfway through his sentence, the smile on Onamaru's face suddenly froze because he was shocked to find that he had lost control of his body. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 958. Seeing that his body was going against his will and gradually leaving Sasuke's body, Suijin's ghost-like face was full of shock and fear. Not far away, Suijin noticed something was wrong. He walked over and asked, What's wrong with you? After leaving Sasuke's body, Suijin suddenly staggered. Suijin, who was close to him, hurriedly stepped forward to support Suijin and asked, What the hell are you doing? Why don't you take the opportunity to kill him? Puff! Before his voice fell, Suijin's hand pierced through the unguarded Suijin's chest, bringing out a splash of blood. You? Suijin's face was full of disbelief. At this time, Suijin's bloody arm stabbed himself without hesitation, piercing his own chest. Pa! With a muffled sound, the two fell to the ground at the same time, and the curse stayed on their bodies began to fade quickly. Boo! After defeating Suijin and Suijin with Jinjutsu, Sasuke panted lightly. Although the battle did not last long, it consumed a lot of Chakra's strength. Fortunately, he got an Earth Scroll, so it was not completely without gain. Bang! Suddenly, a figure flew out of the forest and smashed into a big tree. The tree, which required 4 or 5 people to wrap their arms around, instantly broke in half. Sasuke glanced at it and found that it was the remaining Sound Ninja Village ninja who had been sent flying into the tree. Naruto and Sakura rushed over and asked, Sasuke, are you okay? Sasuke threw the Earth Scroll in his hand and asked, What do you think? Glancing at Suijin and Onamaru lying in a pool of blood, Naruto suddenly muttered, Sasuke, you're too heavy-handed. You didn't kill them, did you? Sakura quickly went forward to check. After this period of internship in my hospital, although she has not yet fully mastered medical ninjutsu, she still knows a lot of basic medical knowledge. After a round of examination, Sakura said, The wounds avoided the vital parts, so they are not dead yet. However, we need to send them to the medical station as soon as possible. Otherwise, they will be in danger. Duya, who was beside the broken tree, got up from the ground. Ignoring the injuries on his body, he staggered towards Sasuke while muttering to himself, "Kill you, I must kill you." Seeing that the other party was so determined to kill him, the confused Sasuke asked, "Why?" in the distance. Orochimaru, who was leaning against a big tree, gradually narrowed his eyes. He was very clear about the strength of Tenseigan, Orochimaru, and Duo Yuya. In the state of breaking out the curse, if the three of them join forces, it is more than enough to deal with a Jonin. But he didn't expect that they would be defeated by Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura, these three kids who just graduated from ninja school. And what surprised Orochimaru even more was that the process of Sasuke defeating Izakami and Onikidomaru was so easy, and there was no fierce battle as he had imagined. It can be seen that the strength of Tenseigan and Orochimaru is not enough to test the limit of Sasuke. A bunch of trash for his defeated subordinates. Orochimaru doesn't have the slightest pity in his eyes, even if those subordinates fought for his orders without any regard for their lives. Immediately, Orochimaru's eyes locked on Sasuke, and his tongue unconsciously stuck out and licked his lips. After this battle, his interest in Sasuke has increased a lot, because he found that Sasuke is better than he thought, and he is worthy of the name of Genius Uchiha. In the monitoring room, Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, watched the battle between Sasuke and the ninjas through the monitor. Although Sasuke is arrogant, his progress is also visible to the naked eye. He handled several crises very well, and he's becoming more and more like a mature ninja. And from some of the details of the battle, Itachi also keenly found that there is something wrong with the ninjas, and secretly said, "The behavior of these ninjas seems to be a bit abnormal." Jiraiya smiled. Sasuke's skills are getting more and more fierce. At present, there are not many battles going on at the same time in the Forest of Death. So, as Sasuke's teacher, Jiraiya naturally also pays attention to the battle between Sasuke and the ninjas. Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, nodded. Well, Kakashi's guidance is really very effective. At this time, Tsunade on the side frowned and said, "Those ninjas are a bit strange. I don't know what secret technique they use to make their bodies change so much." Jiraiya also added, "There's indeed something wrong with those sound ninjas. They seem to care too much about Sasuke. This doesn't conform to the rules of the second exam, which is to compete for the scroll." Tsunade suddenly pointed to another monitor screen. "Look!" Itachi and Jiraiya, who were disguised as Hyojin, looked at the monitor at the same time. From the monitor, it could be seen that another team of ninjas have also arrived near Sasuke and Naruto. In the Forest of Death, after easily dodging Duo Yuya's staggering attack, Sasuke instantly grabbed Duo Yuya, pinned her arms behind her back, and pressed her to the ground. He asked, "Tell me, why are you targeting me?" Naruto and Sakura also looked curious. These three ninjas don't even want their lives, but they are determined to kill Sasuke, which is too abnormal. It seems that the other party is not doing it for the Chunin exam, but simply wants to kill Sasuke. Duo Yuya also laughed. "Even if you defeat us, it will not change anything. Uchiha Sasuke, you will definitely die today." Sasuke's face was covered with a layer of haze. "Relying on you, trash. You want to decide my life and death?" At this time, the sound of slow footsteps came from the dark forest. From the pace and the sound of the footsteps, it can be heard that the person who came is very calm, and he has no intention of hiding his whereabouts. Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura immediately looked over and saw a person gradually walking out of the shadows. The person has white hair, 2 conspicuous red dots on his eyebrows, and his face is a bit pale, but his eyes are exceptionally cold. Kimimaro. After seeing the person's identity, Sasuke's face turned cold. Naruto and Sakura also became nervous. They know the grudge between Sasuke and Kimimaro, so they know that this ninja called Kimimaro is a very powerful ninja. Kakashi even privately evaluated this Kimimaro to be at the level of a Jonin. Sasuke let go of Duo Yuya and said, "Kimimaro, if you arrange for them to attack me, then I can only say that you are too bored. These trash Can't even hurt me. Kimimaro glanced at Akira, Onitomu, and Duo Yuya, who were lying on the ground. There was no change in Kimimaro's eyes. He said to Sasuke calmly, "I'm glad that you didn't die in their hands. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who tipped yesterday. Thank you, everyone." Chapter 959. Sasuke frowned, and his face sank. "What do you mean by that?" Kimimaro slowly raised his arm. A sharp white bone blade appeared from his palm. He pointed it at Sasuke and said, "Because I want to kill you with my own hands." Sasuke was startled at first, but then he laughed and said, "It seems like you haven't forgotten our 3-year promise." 3-year promise. Kimimaro's eyes were blank for a moment, but he didn't deny it. Sasuke put one hand on his waist and smiled coldly. "Since we have already met, let's get rid of you first. Soon, you will experience the true power of the Uchiha clan, just like the ninjas on the ground." Kimimaro said expressionlessly, "I'm different from them." "Different?" Sasuke paused and grinned. "In my Sharingan, there is no difference between you and them." Kimimaro looked at the 3 red Sharingan in Sasuke's eye sockets and said, "Is this the Sharingan that Orochimaru Sama has always wanted?" When he fought with Sasuke a few years ago, Kimimaro didn't feel the power of the Sharingan, so he didn't understand why Orochimaru was so obsessed with the Sharingan. Naruto moved forward and said to Sasuke, "Sasuke, I have a bad feeling. This guy is really different from the ninjas from before." Sakura said, "Yes, we have the Scroll of Earth, so there's no need to fight with such a troublesome enemy. Why don't we retreat for now?" Sasuke said coolly, "Why should we retreat? Isn't it good to eliminate more opponents?" As they were talking, they suddenly realized that the air they exhaled had turned into a white mist floating in the air. Naruto tightened his body and said, "It's so cold." Sakura was puzzled. "What's going on? Why did the surrounding temperature suddenly drop so much?" Spitting out fog was a phenomenon that would only occur under extremely cold conditions, so it meant that the surrounding temperature had been affected by something and had dropped abnormally. Sasuke glanced at the big tree behind him and said, "We are surrounded." After listening to Sasuke's reminder, Naruto and Sakura discovered that on the big tree behind them, there was a shinobi with a delicate face and gentle eyes. The other party is like a ghost, standing silently on the tree branch. If it weren't for Sasuke's Sharingan, Naruto and Sakura wouldn't have noticed him at all. Sasuke, on the other hand, was focused on searching for traces of the other shinobi. They were all in a 3-man team, so there should be another teammate. However, no matter how hard Sasuke tried, he couldn't find any trace of that person. It was as if that person had merged with the surrounding forest. At this time, Kimimaro walked toward Sasuke and said, "Yugo, Haku, you guys go deal with the others. Leave Uchiha and Sasuke to me." "Okay." Haku, who was standing on the tree, nodded lightly. Although he hated killing, he had to obey Orochimaru's order even if he had to lose his life. Yugo, who was walking out from behind a big tree, replied, "Understood." Sasuke's pupil shrank, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. He thought that Yugo was hiding far away, so he couldn't sense him. He didn't expect that Yugo was so close to him, but he didn't sense him at all. "I will carry out Orochimaru Sama's will." After making up his mind, Kimimaro pounced forward, his killing intent overflowing in the distance. Orochimaru, who was leaning on a tree, smirked and said, "Uchiha and Sasuke, let me see what your limit is." Kimimaro, Haku, and Yugo were his subordinates that he truly relied on, especially Kimimaro, who was from the Kagaya clan. This was especially true for Kimimaro, who came from the Kagaya clan. He was simply a killing machine born to fight. He was born with extraordinary fighting power, and he was the leader of the 4 Sound Ninjas. Although Haku had been trying his best to hide, Orochimaru, who could use Duba's body to control the energy of nature, knew that Haku still had a trump card that surprised even him. Yugo could attack and defend, and he could also take on the task of scouting and healing. After going berserk, his fighting power was even more difficult to estimate. If the three of them worked together, it wouldn't be a problem for them to hunt down Kage. On the other side, as they got closer and closer to the battlefield, Deadale and the others who were flying in the air found that the sound of thunder was getting louder and louder, and even the lightning-released chakra in the air was getting thicker and thicker to the point that it could be seen in the form of arcs. As if affected by the tyrannical thunder release ninjutsu on the battlefield, the originally clear sky gradually became gloomy, and a dark cloud began to form above the forest of death. Feeling the confrontation of the thunder release that almost changed the sky at a close distance, Heitu on the clay bird felt his heart palpitate. Deadale, on the other hand, was eager to command the clay bird to lower its altitude. He wanted to get closer to the battlefield and see what was going on. Swish, at this moment, a figure suddenly flashed and stood quietly on the top of a towering tree, blocking Deadale and the others who were trying to approach the battlefield. Mist Village. Heitu immediately recognized the other party's identity after seeing their appearance. Without a doubt, the person standing on the top of the tree and trying to stop Deadale and the others from approaching the battlefield was none other than Xiang Lin and Gara, who was living in the Type 3 biological armor. Oh, it seems that the ones fighting are Cloud Village's Druid and Mist Village's Kirin. After chuckling, Deadale said to Xiang Lin, "Hey, I'm not interested in you. Get out of the way. How can I let you guys hinder Hyojin, Sama?" Gara snorted coldly in his heart. Chapter 960. Wide-eye open. When the roar of battle came from all directions, Ningxi, who was passing through the forest of death, stopped in his tracks and activated his white eye suspiciously. He had expected that the second round of the exam would not be easy, but he did not expect that battles would break out in all directions not long after the exam began. The situation suddenly became white-hot, and even the originally clear sky seemed to be much gloomier. After a while, Tian asked, "How is it? Did you find anything?" Ningxi shook his head. "The battle is not near us." Xiaoli was a little confused, but this sound, the roar that kept echoing in their ears and the slight trembling of the ground under their feet all meant that there was an intense battle nearby, and it was not just one battle. Niji's expression was a little serious as he explained, "My Byakugan can observe the situation within a kilometer, so these battles are not near us. The reason why the aftermath of the battle would reach us is probably because the battle is very fierce, and the aftermath is too big." Tian asked, "What should we do now?" After pondering for a moment, Ningxi said, "The opponents this time are not simple. Let's follow the original plan and meet up with Shikamaru's team first." "Okay." Xiaoli and Tian nodded at the same time. After reaching an agreement, the three of them were about to continue to the meeting point when Ningxi suddenly warned, "Everyone, be careful. Someone is rushing towards us, and he's very fast." Xiaoli and Tian immediately became alert. The other party was pouncing over, and it was obvious that they had discovered their whereabouts. Not long after, three figures appeared in front of Ningxi and the others. They were none other than Hanju, Kenkaro, and Zi Luo from the Sand Crypsis. "I was wondering who it was. So it's Mai's team." Shoju smiled, then glanced at the Byakugan and Niji's eye sockets and said, "Are you from the same clan as Hokage? But since you've met us, you should be more conscious and hand over the scroll." Tian immediately said, "Our Ningxi is Naruto, Sama's disciple. Why would we be afraid of you?" "Oh." Hanju sized up Ningxi with interest. "Since you're Naruto's disciple, it's worth a good fight." On the other side of the Death Forest, Shikamaru looked around at his teammates and could not help but feel vexed. At this moment, in addition to his own team, Hinata, Shino, Zuen, Yakumo, and Sakai teams met up with them according to their previous agreement. However, Ningxi's team had yet to arrive. According to Shikamaru's plan, the main combat strength of all the students in the same batch would be Sasuke, Naruto, and Niji. Or, more accurately, the gigantic summoning beast that had signed a contract with the three of them. Putting aside Sasuke and Naruto, he did not expect that even Ningxi would miss the appointment. This gave Shikamaru a headache. Chapter 961. Rumble. In the layers of dark clouds that shrouded the forest of death, a thick bolt of lightning exploded once again, illuminating the gloomy sky until it was bright and dark at the same time. Whoosh! As the lightning flashed and thunder roared, the rain became heavier and heavier. It was as if it was a heavy downpour. Standing in the curtain of rain, two figures surrounded by electric arcs were panting heavily as they confronted each other from afar. Around them, the ground was full of potholes, trees were falling, and the forest fire was suppressed by the rain. The air was filled with smoke and water vapor. Without a doubt, these two people were Hyojin and Darui, who destroyed a large area of the forest and caused this thunderstorm. At this time, they were both panting and looked very embarrassed. Under the burning of the lightning, the robe draped on Kuroto's body was torn, and it was also emitting bursts of smoke. There was also an obvious wound on his left arm, which looked like a sword wound, but also like a wound caused by thunder and lightning. The sleeve of his left arm was missing. On the other side, Darui's hair was sticking out like a porcupine's. His clothes were in a mess, like a pile of rags. There were many obvious wounds on his body. The long sword in his hand was broken in the middle, turning into a broken blade. This guy, staring at Hyojin, Darui's face was no longer filled with laziness. Instead, it was replaced with seriousness and surprise. At the beginning of the fight, he was still a little careless, but as the fight went on, his carelessness gradually turned into surprise, and then into horror. Strong, very strong. This was Darui's most intuitive and instinctive evaluation of Hyojin. In the ninja world, normal thunder release ninjas were not good at endurance, because compared to other chakra, the thunder chakra was more violent and difficult to control. Therefore, normal thunder release ninjas were not good at prolonged battles. However, Cloud Village's Thunder Shadow lineage was the exact opposite. Every generation of Lei Ying could be crowned with the title of monster. Not only are their lightning release ninjutsu extraordinary, but their physique is also far beyond that of ordinary people. They possess a terrifying endurance that ordinary lightning release ninjas cannot hope to achieve. This is what Cloud Village has always been proud of. Therefore, when he fought with Hyojin, who was using the Thunder Release clone, Druid's heart was filled with too many questions. He couldn't believe that such a powerful Thunder Release ninja existed outside of the Cloud Village. Not only is Kuroto's attainment in the Lightning Release ninjutsu extremely high, almost on par with his Mist Release Kekiai Genkai, but even his physical techniques and chakra's amount are ridiculously strong. Fighting with Hyojin even gave Darui the illusion that he was fighting with 4 generations Lei Ying. Pooh! After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Druid said, "Kirin, you are indeed an opponent worthy of me taking seriously." Hyojin smiled and said, "Then show me your true ability. The warm-up just now is enough." Warm-up. Druid's face stiffened and immediately asked hesitantly, "It's just an exam. Is there a need to fight to that extent? You should be very clear that if we continue to fight, someone will really die." Hyojin said, "Then you can just admit defeat." Druid shook his head and sighed. "It seems that I can only use my true ability." If it was only about him, admitting defeat was not an unacceptable choice for him. He, who was afraid of trouble, might even gladly admit defeat and end the battle. But the current situation is different. At this time, he is not only representing himself, but also the entire Cloud Village. If he takes the initiative to admit defeat in the competition of Lightning Release Ninjutsu, then the reputation of the entire Kumo Village would be tarnished. Therefore, not only can he not admit defeat, but he must also win and declare to everyone in the shinobi world that Kumo Village is the absolute leader in Lightning Release Ninjutsu. Throwing away the broken sword in his hand, Druid said solemnly. Be careful. Kieran. Hey, this is really looking forward to it. Hyojin smiled with great interest. Hey, is the winner decided? But the fluctuations of the chakra are still very strong. They should have chosen to stop fighting. There is no benefit to them if they continue to fight. Noticing that the confrontation in the distance seems to have temporarily stopped, the group of Jonin in charge of the exam suddenly became puzzled. Richa, who had his Byakugan activated, observed for a while and immediately frowned. No, their chakra is still erupting. They're going to fight. What? The Jonins were stunned. The fight has already reached this point. Is it still not a final battle? Then what about the lightning storm in front of them, as well as the devastated forest? As if he had sensed something, Kakashi's body flashed, and without saying a word, he rushed towards the battlefield. On the side, Guy, Asma, and Kurinai followed without thinking. After a few jumps, Kakashi and the others landed on the crown of a big tree at the edge of the battlefield. This place is only a few hundred meters away from the battlefield. It belongs to the area where the aftermath of the battle may affect at any time. But because the battle is beyond imagination, as the invigilators, they can only take the risk to approach. And at this distance, although separated by the fog of the rain, they can directly observe the situation on the battlefield with the naked eye. At this time, Guy pointed a druid on the battlefield and said, Kakashi, look. Kakashi nodded. In fact, there is no need for Guy to specifically remind them. The eyes of several Jonin present have already locked on Druid.